Do I have to do that? No. Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order. It is 6:33, it looks like to me. Are there any announcements? Okay, seeing none, I will proceed to public appearances. Are there any members of the public who wish to address the Commission on non-agendized items? Seeing none, we will now move to agenda item 4. This is an opportunity for library advisory boards and friends groups to report any official representatives. All right, I know that Cloverdale is here for item 4.2, and this will be a presentation by the Cloverdale Lab. Please come forward.
Thank you. I'm Jane Snibbe, and I'm chair of the Cloverdale Library Advisory Board. And we're here to talk to you about our recent refresh. There are certain problems about being the guinea pig for this, but it's all working out in the end. The feelings of the patrons are generally positive. 97-year-old lady that we all know in Cloverdale really well, she wishes it was the way it used to be. And her neighbor, who I know, who is 1 month older than she is, she loves it. So there you are. Take your pick. We like the open feeling that it has, that it didn't have, and of course to be rid of the horrible gold rug and 60s color scheme is a real blessing. And Susan has some pictures that she just took today of the shelving. We like the new shelving. The problem was it was so long getting there. One of the problems we had, and that was one of the problems because of the time frame. Susan will talk about how that impacted some activities of the Friends. The night of our opening night of our book sale, we were all in outside the room with our money set up to collect, and that was when they delivered 2 huge shelving units, which meant we had to clear everything out and make room, and they squidged this thing around to bring it in. It was rather inappropriate timing, but we had no choice. The truck got there, and that's what they were going to do. So there were things like that happened, and we opened up without really being ready in many ways, but it had been closed so long. And I will say it did work very well for us, and I heard from the staff, they didn't object to the fact that people could use online searching and then pick up their books a couple afternoons a week over at the Veterans Building, and that by and large worked pretty well. One of the things that bothered me as a retired librarian is that they had the old shelving for the periodicals for until just recently. They just got the new shelving, and it looked awful because the magazine folders all curved over, and it just didn't add anything to the space, but that's now been corrected. We love the new carpet and the openness and the spaciousness and the feel of it. And the staff has been very helpful in helping people with self-checkout, because that's a new thing for us up there. Even I didn't realize I went to check out a book, and I just couldn't. I thought, well, hey, I know how to do this. Why isn't this working? Well, it was from Wake County, and you can't use self-checkout with things outside the county. So that's another lesson learned. Several people have mentioned to me that the way it was if you've not been to the library, you walked in and the desk was there, and then you went out on the other side when you checked out. You returned your books on one side, and they miss seeing the staff up close when they walked in the library. You have to now go to the back of the library to see the staff, and we have so many new people I always go introduce myself because there's people there I've never seen before. So this has been a little unsettling, that we just don't have the close relationship with the staff that we had, especially as we walked in. And then the thing that was frustrating, and Susan will address that, was the changing the dates. You know, we heard about, this was on tap for months and months and months, and then it would be moved up, and then we couldn't have it with summer reading being, and all these things happened. So this was very frustrating. So hopefully when you do the next round of this, you'll set dates and you'll stick with those so that people can plan. And then I do appreciate, and all of us on the Library Advisory Board and the Friends, there were certain things that were in the plans that we didn't like. They wanted to take out the Friends book carousel and the magazine thing that we sell to raise money, which Susan will say how much they paid for it. And they wanted to put those way in the back. And so the staff listened to us and changed their opinion on that. And I think that was really important, and I hope that happens in the future, that the staff may have an idea, but the people that are there locally. That book carousel was made by a retired, well, he's now deceased, wood shop instructor at Cloverdale High School. So that really means a lot to the people of Cloverdale, and there's a plaque on it. So it was very heartening to know that staff was willing to listen to us and to our local concerns. And I thank you all for your support and wish the next group who's going through this well, and if we can be any help, we'll be happy to do so.
Good evening. Susan Clark, President, Friends of the Cloverdale Library. It's all's well that ends well. And it was a rough road, mainly because we canceled the art show, which turns out we could have had the art show. We said, please, we have our book sale in October. Don't mess with that weekend. Don't worry, we were closed that weekend. We had the book sale later when we opened, but you miss getting all those people who are used to coming that 1 week in October for the book sale. But we've survived. We're slowly building up our funds again. It'll take us several more years to get back up to that $50,000 amount that we gave to the library for the refresh, but we're glad we did. We saved for it. And today, the end caps came in. For some reason, the end caps were really important to a lot of the Friends. And we kept going, when are they coming in? Ken, when are they coming in? And we just kept waiting and waiting and waiting. But today they're in, and here's photos, and you can just pass them around and then just leave them with Reese. I'll get them from her later.
Do you have any questions for us?
I have a question, and that's about each year the commission allocates $500 to the LABs to help them do outreach to the community, and I just wondered if you have found ways to use that money,
We haven't. What we did originally, and what we used it for, we used to go down to Friday Night Live, and we had a tape. Well, then we found out we had these adorable twins of one of our board members would run out in the street and hand out stuff on summer reading, and then the answer was, "Oh, we don't live here." So there's so many people. So we've abandoned that. That just is. As I'm also on the board of the Education Foundation in Cloverdale, and we did the same thing and ran into the same thing. I mean, people that live in Petaluma don't want to donate to the Cloverdale Education Foundation. So that didn't work. So we really haven't had anything that we've done, and we can't, at this point, maybe we need to put that on the agenda and do some thinking about that to see if there's something else we could come up with. So.
Okay, and Commissioner McKenzie?
Borrow this one. Thank you both for your reports. Very interesting. I always love to hear about the Friends and the labs. And I did go up and visit the Cloverdale refresh about 3 weeks ago. It didn't sink in at the time, but because I was curious about your remark that the reference desk is way at the back. In Runner Park, our reference desk is way in the back, but the checkout stuff's way in the front. And I thought the new thinking was in these consolidated service desks that they would be toward the front. So how did that happen, that it got moved to the back?
I don't Do you know? I don't really know what the reason was, but I mean, it did. I mean, there's no doubt about the fact that it took up space there. And so now we have nice furniture and a new book area, which is very inviting for people to come in and browse for new books. But it's that human connection, I think, that people miss. That because you walk in and you put your books down, hi to whoever, there, and then you go on in, and the same, you're actually faced. I mean, I do like self-checkup. I'll have to admit that. And they've been very nice about helping people that have had trouble doing it, including me, who didn't know that Lake County didn't work. But there is a lack of human connection somehow in this new configuration. But there's more room. It's more spacious. You're not squeezing in a narrow place to put the books down. It's very open there, and it's a good feeling. But
Well, thank you. So what I made note of was getting straight on the dates, committed to the dates, checking calendars and making sure things are coordinated, and then involve volunteers in decision making that have in particular impact on volunteer activities like the Friends of the book sale and the kiosk and all that stuff. That's essentially kind of the takeaway message I'm getting from what I'm hearing you say. And it turned out beautifully, but it was a kind of a
right. And I do think being able to go over the vets, which is fairly close to our library, and pick up books. It wasn't that the library was just shut down completely and there was no use of it at all. I think that's a really important thing to consider when you're doing that there's some way for people to still participate, because so many people now order the books from their home computers anyway. That worked really well.
Yeah.
And then they started toward the end just keeping a bunch of stuff there, the videos and things that they thought people might want to check out. So they stored those over at the Vets Hall. And I don't know how much that cost, but probably not too much. But
it was a nice browsing section.
There was a browsing section there. So
I think we have a couple more questions for you. I thought Tim first, Commissioner May.
I'd like to thank you for making the drive down here and taking the time to give the benefit of your experience to think about the whole system, not just what you guys went through. And thank you for your service to the library.
Thank you. Well, like I said, they fixed that road between Hillsburg and Windsor, so it isn't as a teeth-shattering drive as it used to be.
Commissioner Hauser.
I have less a question for you than I have a question for staff. We're hiring architects for each of these refreshes, I believe. Do we make sure what kind of experience they have? Do they have specific library experience? Because there are different things you do for libraries than you do for other types of things. So that's just one of the questions I think we need to really be careful about, because you're talking about having a presence when you walk in the door. You got to have somebody there to answer a question, to see where the checkout thing is and all that kind of stuff. And it seems to me it's obvious that you put centrally located and easily visible your one counter where you have bodies sitting there. So that's kind of just a thought I have, because I know when we refresh Sonoma, our people are right there when you walk in. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Well, I also want to thank you both for coming down and making a report about Cloverdale to the Commission. I missed the year or so when I was first on the Commission where we went around to the different libraries and held our Commission meetings, because that was a great opportunity to meet people in that community and the volunteers at the libraries. So I appreciate so much that you came down here. And I just also want to remind the other commissioners that this is what we want their labs to do and their friends to do too, is come and make reports to the Commission. And so hopefully we'll get some more interest in this. But thank you for being among the first. I think Santa Rosa was the first, but thank you so much. And I know it is a long drive, albeit a little better.
Our commissioner makes it down here every month. So
she comes down here practically every week. Thank you very much.
Okay,
Good to
thank
see
you.
you. Okay, on cue, we have item number 5.1, and we have Jeffrey Skinner making a presentation about the digitization strategy and guiding principles. Thanks for making that presentation, Jeffrey.
Sure thing. Oh, good. Thank you. Yes. All right. I was for you, or many of you, almost a year ago, talking about digitizing our special collections, and tonight I'm here to give an informational presentation on the formal digitization strategy that was requested by former Director Brett Lear in response to requests from the City of Santa Rosa to digitize a portion of the Luther Burbank Home and Gardens archive that is currently housed in the Luther Burbank home under somewhat less than ideal conditions, and they were interested in being able to make the materials available digitally so that the group that actually runs that program would have access to them without handling the materials, without them being stored there. So before we move forward with that proposal, we did have this request to really come up with a strategy for this and future projects that might be proposed. So it replaces the more ad hoc approach that we used to evaluate earlier projects and proposals. Oops. Okay, there we go. So in this strategy, we updated the mission statement, which had been the Sonoma Heritage Collection's mission statement. That's our primarily our digital images collection. So that it also includes the related projects, so the totality of our digital initiatives. And I developed a guiding principle to take us forward, the heart of which is preserving and making accessible Sonoma County's local history. So this principle addresses all the current and future resources, including the different initiatives that we have from the Sonoma County Authors site to the Heritage Collection, as well as individual projects within those initiatives. A very important part of this is recognizing that preservation of the digital files, once we've created them, is key to continuing to create access. For the last several years, we've been keeping archival copies. These are the full resolution copies of the digitized images on a local server. That server is reaching the end of its life, or has reached it. So we're in the process of transitioning over to an Amazon Web Services cloud server. And along with that, as formats are updated, we will convert our files so that we're able to stay current. Now, our digitization, our collection is mostly materials that we're actively digitizing, but it does include a small and growing segment of born digital objects, including images that are taken digitally, as well, and ebooks and databases, such as our local authors databases is something that we are creating ourselves. And under the guidance of our digital strategy principles and the strategic plan, we continue to seek out partners who can provide us with additional materials that illuminate Sonoma County history. Some of the partners that we've worked with in the past have included Sonoma County Fair, the Sonoma County Bar Association and the Western Sonoma County Historical Society. And then with this upcoming project with the City of Santa Rosa, we have the city and the Luther Burbank Home and Gardens. Most of our materials are digitized by vendors off-site. These include Luna Imaging in Los Angeles and the Internet Archive in San Francisco. We just sent off several thousand photos to Luna Imaging, and these will eventually be available on our website, on the Heritage website. The more sensitive materials we are doing in-house, as well as some one-off digitization. The Luther Burbank Home and Gardens project in particular, the agreement requires that materials do not leave the site. And so for that, we'll be processing it in-house by either staff or bringing a vendor to do it actually in-house. But no matter what the process, we are trying to adhere to the industry standards, best practices, so digitizing materials at high resolution so that down the road when somebody needs that high resolution copy, we have it available. Another key part of our strategy is ensuring that access is as widely available as possible. And this is accomplished by making our materials discoverable through Google, through the Digital Public Library of America, through the Online Archive of California, and other sites. And along with that, connecting with our local community. One example of this is our first Community Scan Day, which we held last year, in which people brought a small number of photographs or other items to the History and Genealogy Library. We digitized them, took down the stories that they provided, sent them home with a thumb drive containing the digital files, and we also kept copies ourselves, and those will be incorporated into the heritage collections. We look forward to doing this again in the future, making it a regular event. Our digital strategy is underpinned by a number of supporting guiding principles that cover 4 key areas: digitization, digital preservation, metadata, so all of the information describing the objects, as well as both technical and descriptive, like what is this photo showing. These documents, if you're interested in them, aren't available yet. They will be available on the staff intranet soon. They're somewhat still in progress. Within the digitization guiding principles document is a checklist that is, on a practical level, the heart of the strategy. And this checklist will help ensure that we're meeting our goals. I do want to emphasize these 6 items here are not really a new approach. We have been following them all along, with the exception of the strategic plan, which was not in place earlier. But we are now evaluating in light of goals in 2 particular areas. In Area 2, the library provides our residents with the educational and recreational experiences needed to succeed as citizens, students, and parents. And Area 4, the library brings people, organizations, and ideas together to build a stronger community. And we did use this checklist then in evaluating the Luther Burbank Home Gardens project. So, if anyone has any questions about this, please ask. And if you're interested in seeing the documents and this presentation again, it will all be available on the internet soon.
Thank you very much. I see a couple of hands. I see Commissioner Hauser, and then Commissioner May, and Commissioner McKenzie.
This is a naive question. Will it be searchable by title or contents? In other words, if I wanted to search on Google, will it come up based on the contents or on the title?
It will probably come up both, because each of the records that you do find on Google, there are a multitude of keywords,
right?
Titles, subjects, creators, so photographers.
Right.
We're talking about the photographs. So many ways of coming up with them.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Hauser?
I get the impression that this is a library staff that's doing this work.
Yes.
It's not a separate entity.
It is not a separate entity. It is.
What staff do you have?
Well, it's primarily taking place within the cataloging department and history and genealogy library. But really, it's the special collection. So the wine library, history and genealogy are the primary, and peddling mystery room. The people who are involved with all of those are also involved with creating this, but ultimately creating the online presence, that lies with the cataloging department at the present.
Well, I'm trying to get an idea of how many full-time staff members we have working in this. Could you estimate that?
Sure. We have no staff working full-time on this. I am working on it.
Equivalent.
We have probably 1.5, I would say, at any given time. It really varies, but we don't have a separate department doing this.
Does the budget break this out in any way, Ken? Is this tracked in any way as a separate activity?
Well, we track it, based on the cost of
Yes.
Yeah, we track the all the expenses.
But is it tracked under digitizing or something like that?
You can't see it on the monthly reports, no. It would be a separate report that I would have to run.
Okay, so we could run a report on that?
Yes.
Okay, and then my next question, or last question is, has there been any change in the funding for this from the prior year to the current year budget?
Yes.
Yes.
How much?
$25,000.
Less?
Yes.
Because we got a grant, an advertising grant from the county that covered the majority of the cost for this. And they reallocated their funding for this year.
So what you're saying, I think, is that we had a $25,000 grant that went away, so we still have in our regular budget the same resources.
Yes. Well, we'll take care of the expenses so we can continue to do this. The Luther Burbank one that Jeffrey mentioned is a specific contract with the city of Santa Rosa where they're going to pay us to digitize all those
Okay, I'm
things.
still not quite understanding. Last year, we had $25,000 grant, and we had X of library money that comes from the taxes. Okay, so this year, in 17-18, do we have still X, or is it X plus or X minus, ignoring the $25,000 grant?
We still have X, but we were relying, when we did the budget, we thought we would continue to get the advertising grant, but when we did the budget, that was before they awarded their grants, and we found out in June or July that we weren't going to get it.
So we're going to run a deficit on this for our budget then?
Yes.
Okay. And is that going to be in the $25,000 range, the $10,000 range?
Most likely the $25,000 range, yes, because that's the money we were expecting to get.
Thank you.
Yep.
Commissioner McKenzie.
Yes, thank you. This is a really interesting project. I love the fact that our resources will be Googleable. I think it's really cool. One of the things that we're missing in our packet is that checklist or
Yes.
how to evaluate projects. We don't have that.
I meant to say something about that at the start, and I apologize that slide was added later. And it will be in the packet that is available, that will be available on the intranet. And I can send you an updated, we can send out an updated copy of this immediately.
That'd be great to see. I don't know how to do the intranet. But,
Sure.
I was also curious on the Luther Burbank thing. One of the things that you mentioned, somebody asked you about who's doing this, and I thought what you were saying in your presentation, that combination of vendor, that the vendors were doing most of the digitization. Did I?
They are. Our regular digitization has been done by a vendor in Southern California. For this project, though, the agreement stipulates that it needs to be done in-house. So that's going to be either a staff member hired through with money from what the city of Santa Rosa has budgeted for it, or a vendor doing that work in-house. We're still working on that.
I'm talking about the Luther Burbank specifically.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's done off-site.
And then lastly, I was curious. I couldn't quite hear what Ken was saying, but are we getting paid by the city of Santa Rosa to do this?
Correct.
Is it a contract or
Yes.
by hour or how?
A contract. So we have a set amount that we
One lump sum?
estimated. I'm not sure how it's being paid out. Ken would have to answer that, but there was an amount that we agreed to that we wouldn't go over in digitizing this. It happens to be around 2,000 photos.
But the contract will cover our expenses.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on a cost recovery basis.
Thank you. It's an amazing historical archive, that Luther Burbank works. So I think this is a terrific addition to what our library has to offer. So thank you.
It is. And about that, I'll just mention that we actually have a small portion of that collection that we have photocopies of. And the photocopies are in the annex currently, but we really look forward to replacing those with good scans of the original photographs. So it'll be a great thing for everyone.
Commissioner May.
I have a question about that day where you invited people. Were there lines, or was it sparse, or?
That particular one, we had, I don't know, how many? It wasn't very many for that one. It was small. It was a small event.
But it sounds really exciting. I hope next time there's a lot of publicity about it so people know. To get involved in creating your own history is exciting.
Yeah. Well, with the additional staff that we now have, I think that will be much more possible.
Thanks.
So.
I have a question. Are you able to digitize slides?
Yes. Yes, we are. It's a little more work to do those, but we can. We send both sending them out and doing some number locally, in-house, but we can handle slides. Basically any format.
And one more question. So how will you find more projects? Will people apply to the library to have their collections digitized? Will you seek them out? Both?
Both. It sort of depends on where the budget discussions to make up that missing $25,000 goes as to how long it takes us to do the Luther Burbank project. I don't foresee, because we do have a timeline for that, but I don't foresee that we'll be actively launching into anything else until we're well underway on that project. We do seek out projects. People do come to us saying, I have this great whatever. would you be interested? And, given our our checklist, our strategy, we're not going to say yes to everything. It has to meet the various requirements, and not just a couple of them. But they come to us in a variety of ways.
Great. Any other comments or questions from the Commission?
Can I ask just one more? One more quick question. Do we, or how do we coordinate with other libraries to make sure we're not duplicating, like, checking with Sonoma State, they already have all of Gala Bear and stuff, or, that kind of thing?
There's a certain amount of material that inevitably will get duplicated, but because we're really focusing on Sonoma County, that already filters out a lot of what we might get that could be duplicates. The material, I think we probably do have some duplicated material with Sonoma State, but they're really the only other one that have done the kind of digitization that we have. And it's easy to check with them. Just going back a few years, when we digitized the wine library collection, the Biblioteca Venaria Sonoma, on that project, a lot of the materials we were digitizing pre-1923, so out of copyright books in the wine library. And a lot of those, of course, were not Sonoma County specific. And they had been digitized either by Google or by somebody working with Internet Archive. Prior to sending any material down, we made a very thorough survey of what had already been digitized so that we were not wasting our money, wasting the county's money, and making smart choices about what to send. Okay.
Okay, thank you very
much. All right, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
All right, I've been told that Angelina is not going to be able to be here to give her presentation about the literary landmark, item 5.2, but Director Gray will sub in for her.
So I just have a little information to give out. You all should have received an invite for the Literary Landmark event, which is this Thursday at Central at 1 o'clock. This was a project that Angelina had been working on, our community engagement coordinator, with our previous director, Brett Lear, and they had applied through, there is a Literary Landmark Association through the American Library Association. It was founded in 1986 by former Friends of the Library USA president, Frederick Ruffner, to encourage the dedication of historic literary sites. Some of the dedications have included homes of famous writers such as Tennessee Williams and William Faulkner. Most of the dedications have included libraries, museum collections, and literary scenes. So our Angelina sent the service bulletin, and I forwarded it to the Library Commission the literary landmark, which will be permanently displayed at the Central Library, will honor Charles M. Schultz, and it will live at the entrance next to Charlie Brown outside. The dedication at 1 o'clock will be to reveal the literary landmark plaque, and it will be placed at the entrance for all generations to enjoy. So the event's at 1 o'clock. We are going to have a photo opportunity, and then we'll have some light refreshments in our courtyard at Central, and then the plaque will be there permanently.
Thank you very much. Any questions about this? Commissioner May.
Is there a literary landmark website?
There is. The Literary Landmark website, it's the ala.org/ and I can forward you, it's a long URL, so I can forward it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Might be a fun trip to take a literary landmark journey.
Right. Yeah. That's a good idea. Yeah, I will forward the link.
Thank you, Tracy. Okay, any comments from any members of the public on the agenda to this point? All right, we're going to go to item 7, and that's commissioner reports. 6.1 is commissioner reports, and we'll start with Commissioner Foxen.
I have spent most of my time this last month actually taking what Tom Hauser and Helena Whistler have done with the SOPs and integrating, and my work, and integrating them because there was a lot of overlapping, there were a lot of holes, so I've been trying to fill those holes. So that's what I spent most of my time doing this last month.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And Commissioner, what is that? Katie Duran.
I don't have anything to report, sorry. Thank you.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes, Roanoke Park Cotati Regional Library Lab had a table at our Roanoke Park Farmers Market on just a couple weeks ago, July 28th, and I wanted to give a shout out again to one of our children's libraries, Katie Durisky, who I believe is a person who got a grant, and I believe it's from the foundation, but now we have a canopy with the Sonoma County name and logo on it, and this really cool tablecloth with the logo and the name on it. And just being there in the farmer's market under that is just a presence, and it just announces the library in a much better way than we were able to when we used my Thanksgiving tablecloth and we had a little homemade sign. So anyway, really cool. We had a good presence, we had a good turnout, and very, very good cooperation from all of our lab members. So it was a good day for everybody. I worked a couple-hour shift, and it's always great to see the public and do the spinner and all that jazz. I went with our branch manager, Nancy Clavan, to the Rancho Cotati Rotary Club, and they gave us a check for our branch for $1,700, money they had raised from various efforts, and the money is going to be spent on the way it's described is the kids in story time. A lot of them are kind of restless and active, and so this furniture is going to be built that the active kids can go over and wrestle around on the furniture while the listening kids are listening to the story time. Anyway, it was really neat, and really appreciate Rancho Cotati Rotary Club's contribution. I also attended the annual Moonlighters event at Roanoke Park Cotati Library, which was on July something, the middle of July. And this is an annual event that has really become a big deal. It's free, and Sally Tomatoes out at Sonoma Mountain Village dedicates free dinner every year. So there's a pasta dinner that's free, everybody gets. The music is free, paid for by the friends. And there's dancing and fun, and it's just a really upbeat event. It's become a real tradition. And so that was a cool thing. I interviewed the new lab applicant, and I just wanted to make a comment to the commission here. I think anytime we have an applicant to our lab, and whoever it's our branch, and we've done the interview, I think it just as a formality, it's kind of nice if that commissioner would be the one to nominate that applicant. Just, I don't know, formality, but I just wanted to mention that. Anyway, we have a great new guy, and he's very active. Before he was even appointed, he volunteered to work Cotati Children's Day, where we had a presence, and also this farmer's market. So I'm very happy to have a new enthusiastic lab member coming on. I attended the Chamber of Commerce noon times last week and gave a big shout out to the library and talked about us being open 6 days a week and 52 hours a week. And lastly, there's a photography show, all run by volunteers, of course, as I hear in other branches, and this starts on August the 7th. So I'll be working a shift down there, and it's always a great event. Thank you.
Commissioner Havenridge.
Here we go. On the 18th, the Gurnville Lab had a meeting that was kind of a restructuring going on. So we're looking at that and getting some more members. And I just want to mention I did go to the ALA Literary Landmark site, and we're going to be in good company here. It looks City Lights Bookstore was one. And John's Grill down in San Francisco is Dashiell Hammett, the Maltese Falcon, so that's pretty cool. And then my favorite place, which I've spent some time at, is Heinhold's First and Last Chance Saloon, where Jack London kind of hung out. So that's in Oakland. So, yay! That's really exciting. I just wanted to share that.
All right, and Commissioner Hauser?
The Friends in Sonoma have expressed concern about what is their future use with the library, saying, well, now we have this tax money. Do we have anything to do? Are we useless? And being on the Finance Committee, I think we've got lots of places to spend money, and I think they have at least a use in continuing to raise money for library activities and special things. I think this commission needs to have some special way of addressing that issue, whether we do it at a study session, a workshop, or we have a subcommittee or something. Somebody needs to address this. It doesn't have to be even a committee of this commission. It could be other people too, but I would like to have that put on the agenda for discussion sometime in the future, because I think it's really important that we hold on to our friends.
I just want to comment that I believe that we're going to have a further discussion in October. We had talked about that. Is that the month that we chose? Yeah. So tell your friends. Commissioner May?
This Petaluma Lab is meeting the end of the month. Our meeting was postponed. And essentially that's all the news I have, except Croatia was really beautiful.
Do they have libraries? Do they have a library there too?
I didn't see any libraries.
Commissioner Garcia?
The Santa Rosa Lab is unique in that we represent 4 libraries and library branch managers. And there was a in-depth discussion on the positions and what's going on with the transition in the library in terms of the ranking of the positions, what they felt was important, and also to reassure them that we still need the friends. I mean, we all need friends, right? But the Y money isn't going to pay for everything in every single library. And I think we still need to let people know that and then come up with things that specifically. But again, it is unique and interesting to hear from 3 branch managers as to how they feel that the position should be ranked and things like that. Tracy was in on that because I came in on conference call. The other thing is I'm part of the Rosalind Coalition, and we're meeting tomorrow at 1 o'clock with Rosalind, and that is to seek funds from the outside to be able to build a permanent Rosalind Library and to sustain it. And we have some movers and shakers. We'll see how far we'll go. As you know, Rosalind, the shovel to rebuild the Rosalind area will not hit the ground until the spring or summer of 2018, and we will be moved from the temporary place where we are now to another temporary place. And the challenge is, can we afford an $8,000 library? And the money needs to come from outside. We don't build the libraries. The Library Commission doesn't build it, but we staff it and we put what's inside. So stay tuned for that information. And then the lab, Santa Rosa Lab, will meet again in October. Can you add anything to that, Tracy? No? Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Neff?
The Windsor Friends had a book sale Sunday a week ago at the Windsor Farmers Market, where we sold quite a few books, which was good. We still need some sort of one-page handout that we can give to people that talk about all the wonderful services that the library has to offer. Certainly all of the electronic ones. You know, it's hard to talk to everybody about, well, we have language learning, and we have Hoopla, and we have this, and we have that. And we don't have a one page that says, here's all this cool stuff you can do at the library. And so it seems like we're at the market, we're talking to lots of people, but we're not really advertising it well. The other thing is I want to thank the foundation for their chocolate and cinema last Thursday night. I really love Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's still as much fun as when I saw it originally in the theater some large number of years ago. And so I have to call out for the Rialto Cinema for providing the space and the film and the popcorn and all that stuff, and to thank Linda Garcia for making it happen.
I was just one of many, but I am the only one that dressed up. And then for an hour we put together bags of chocolate. For those of you employees who didn't get to go, you missed it. And we even had vegan chocolate bags. I made sure, because people have different dietary needs. I know that better than other people. And we had raffle prizes, and it was sold out. And Commissioner May spent $25 for a bag of popcorn. And we've never been sold out before. And all of that money, again, branch managers can apply for the small mini grants and for the summer reading series. And I've also told the foundation, we still need you. We still need your resources. Why money isn't going to buy everything. And if you want to serve underserved, we can come up with programs for that. But don't hesitate to raise that money and keep it for programs from the library, for the library. So I'm glad that some of you could come. Even Commissioner McKenzie and her husband came thinking they could buy tickets at but we were sold out, and we oversold by six individuals. So, but I did wear my Indiana Jones hat and vest, and I didn't carry a whip though. But it was a very successful evening. And next year, I hope more of you come, because the foundation wants to thank the employees, and they were ready for 200 free people with their guests. And I did see a few employees there, but more next time. Bigger theater. Big shout out to the Rialto. They supply the movie, the theater, the popcorn, and the foundation provides the different kinds of chocolates. But there was a vegan chocolate bag. I packed them myself and put bows on them so that we could distinguish those. Thank you.
Commissioner May.
I forgot going to the Eclipse training, and it was wonderful, and but I think the thing that impressed me most was that there is this procedure to give out free glasses to look at and the people who are doing that chose libraries, which is really cool that they see the role of libraries in the culture and the availability to all people. So it was a good lesson, and she had her telescope so we could look at the sun. It was really cool.
Okay, thank you. And I tried to go to the Rialto, but they were sold out. So, but I appreciate next year, definitely. I went last year. And I just wanted to thank everybody for re-electing me chair for one more year. I appreciate your confidence and your teasing.
Appreciate you.
Well, thank you. And I also wanted to remind the commissioners that that if you haven't done your ethics training as required, we have had one certificate turned in tonight. It's 2 hours. It's a 2-hour thing. Yeah, online, 2 hours. And also coming up, we will be getting a notice about harassment prevention training for commissioners also. So keep your eyes peeled for that email.
I'll be sending out notices on that by your emails. On both of the trainings, the directions ask that you spend 2 hours reviewing them, at least 2 hours reviewing the materials, however long it takes you to take the test. That's what the 2 hour.
Yeah, the test shouldn't take 2 hours.
I don't think so.
And before we and also I attended the Friends, Sebastopol Friends meeting, and they also, as many of the Friends groups, are opining what their role is, and will continue to need some support in helping them feel like they're still our friends. And they truly are, because I hope they're our friends for a long, long time. I also attended the Sebastopol Lab meeting last Wednesday, and Tracy was there. And we also had one of the members who's both a friend and a lab member talk about the book buying policy. And we did say that we had planned to put it on the agenda, I think, in October, not September.
Right.
Yeah. So we'll be having more discussion on those issues. I attended the first OPEB meeting by telephone because I wasn't feeling well, so that went very well and was very worthwhile, and I think that we have a good group that's sitting on that. But I'm not giving that report. I'm guessing, Barbara, will you be giving that OPEB report a little bit? Okay. Okay. It doesn't have to be long, but I think it was very worthwhile. Before we go into the reports, though, I had said that I would talk about who is going to be on the different committees this coming year. And so the Director Evaluation Committee is going to, at this time, remain the same. We have 3 people. There is a position if there is a commissioner who would like to sit on that committee.
Could you read those names?
Okay. So Linda Garcia, David Ebright, who's absent tonight, and myself. On the Finance Committee, we also had interest from the current members of that committee to continue, and that is Barbara McKenzie, Reese Foxon, Randall Neff, Tom Hauser, and myself. The Advocacy Committee, I have Reese Foxon, Paul Heavenbridge, and Tim May. On the Foundation Liaison, Linda has agreed to continue to be that liaison for the next year. On the Standard Operating Procedures Group, we have Reese Foxon, Tom Hauser, and myself. The OPEB Commission liaisons are Barbara McKenzie and myself. Measure Y, I believe Barbara volunteered to be the liaison for that group too, although I'll be attending the first meeting with her. On the Director's Search Committee, I have Tim May, Linda Garcia, and myself, and there is an additional spot if, an additional spot if another commissioner has a burning desire to be part of that committee. I saw Reese's hand. Any other takers? Okay, so we have Randall and Reese. I think that we can have 5, although maybe not. I've double checked that with the vacancy. We have a vacancy from from Healdsburg. Okay, all right.
5 is okay.
Okay.
Because 6 would be we'd have, even with 10 people, 6 is
okay, so we'll have Tim, Linda, Randall, and Reese, and myself on that search committee. And those are the appointments. So now we'll go into the reports. The Director's Evaluation Committee met briefly, and we met with Director Gray to talk about the process for working on her evaluation. Sorry, she's the interim director. And so we'll be getting together to finalize what that process is and present it to the commission. So 6.2.2, the Finance Committee. Excuse me.
Thank you. The Finance Committee met on July 17th in the library conference room. All Commissioner Committee members, the interim director, and the CFO were present. Commissioner Foxon attended by phone. We had no members of the public there. I reported some good news. I'd read in the paper that the Calpers investments came in at 11.2% the past fiscal year, which is really good news for all employers, and in huge contrast to last year, which was 0.61%. So it went from 0.61% to 11.2%. So that's really good. The investment return obviously affects the contributions all employers are required to make. So this really helps us. The monthly reports were not available for review because staff was still closing out the year. The reports were emailed to the committee members a few days later. We had a brief discussion about how the county finance staff is still involved in secondary approval of payments, which was, I didn't realize. So our CFO approves the payments, they go to the county, they're approved, and then posted. There were no upcoming budget adjustments to discuss. We're starting to see the first sales tax money trickle in, which is great. It was reported that the OPEB ad hoc committee would have the first meeting on July 18th, which we did. Helena and I, as she explained, are the commission or participants. Ken drafted a really nice summary of comprehensive information to give to this group, which explains our Calpers situation. And our committee reviewed that and made a few suggestions. We were really impressed with what Ken had put together and appreciate it. And I'll report more when I talk about the OPEB committee. The Measure Y Oversight Committee needs to begin to organize and set a date for its first meeting. So I was asked to put some dates together, and Jane sent out a doodle poll, and I do believe we do now have a date for our first Measure Y Oversight Committee. So that's great. Director Gray reported that she had met with all the division managers and reviewed staffing again, and some changes need to be made. A draft list was discussed, and a full report will be presented to us tonight. We talked a little bit about purchase orders for building refreshes. These provide a tracking system for expenditures. We talked a little bit about the refreshes, and we encouraged our CFO Ken to make regular ongoing updates as these refreshes kind of unfold, to just keep everybody up to date on them. We talked about hiring a consultant to calculate our very specific Calpers expected liability payments. Ken had done some more research and had contacted two of the cities who had done this, who had hired this consulting firm called Bartel and Associates. The cool thing about them, they not only do these very specific calculations, but they will come down to commission or city or whoever hires them and kind of educate the body about, what CalPERS is and how it's calculated and what the impact is and so forth. So we'll kind of get to the things that we were looking at, a way to educate us as a commissioner and also to get some very specific numbers for budget going forward. Anyway, Ken's recommendation is that we do that we do hire Bartel, and we were unanimous in our support of that idea. Ken also reported that he had completed the physical inventory list. This was the only item that was outstanding from last year's audit. It was a significant achievement, and we give many thanks to Ken for taking this on and completing it. It was a big task, and we're really pleased that it's completed. And so now our audit, everything outstanding from the audit has been taken care of. And Ken is going to continue with this, update this report now that he's, done the bulk of the work. So we continue to update it on a yearly basis. Director Gray also reported some more information about the Runner Park lease space, and again is going to present us with full information tonight. The next Finance Committee meeting will be held Monday, August the 21st at 3 o'clock in the conference room, where we will select officers for the coming year, along with reviewing our roles and responsibilities. And I had a note here, commissioners interested in serving on the finance should contact our commission chair, but I believe that's all in place now. So anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you, Barbara. It's very good. Advocacy Committee?
Oh, we canceled the meeting because everybody else was out of town, and talking to myself wasn't all that fascinating.
Depends on your perspective.
Can I ask a question? Has there been any report on the Senate bill that we were advocating? Is it going to?
It's passed both the House and the Senate committees, and now it's sitting and waiting, and I did not find out for sure where it was at, but last I heard about a week and a half ago, it was just sitting.
Okay. Thanks.
Thanks for that update. Yeah, it's hard to find those things sometimes where they are.
Yeah.
Okay, so Foundation Liaison Report 6.2.4.
Mostly involved in the chocolate and cinema, and then will we go back to normal? We meet every second Wednesday, I believe, and we'll see what the report was, but I'm sure we raised lots of money, and I'll get back to you with more specifics because that was the priority up until then.
Thank you, Linda. The Ad Hoc OPEB Committee?
Just briefly, I didn't prepare a report, but we did have our first meeting on July 18th. It was really good. I felt very encouraged. We had a very good meeting. Again, Ken presented some really good information to everyone. We have 3 outside experts working with us. One is a partner in our CPA firm, a sentient brinker. His name is John, and I can't remember his last name. And we have an independent CPA named Larry. Can't remember his last name. My apologies. Again, I didn't know I was going to make this report. And then Darren Jenkins, who's the city manager for Roanoke Park. The great thing about Darren in particular is that he is kind of a semi-expert on OPEB. He's written the article that was published under the California League of Cities, and that article was distributed to all of us. I don't know if you've all had a chance to read it. And Darren, being an engineer, has kind of an approach of taking things in pieces and chunks, and really talked about how we could put together an OPEB plan in different segments, and even talking about some of the Friends money to spend some of the Friends money on collections, for example, and then having some money, more money left in the collections budget that we could apply to a purse. This is just all speculation. It's time, just kind of an open-ended discussion. But we have a second meeting scheduled for next week, and I feel really positive and very good about it, and really appreciate the fact these 3 people are volunteering their time to work with us on this.
One thing I just want to add is that, and I think Ken noted this in his email, is that the library has already taken some steps that have been suggested by the outside experts. So I think we all have the single mind to address this issue and to take care of it, and that this will just help us really stay on track with that. Commissioner May?
My question has to do with the use of Friends, the suggestion, and my question is related to the issue that in the past year or two, it's been up to the branch managers to make requests of the Friends as a part of the budget process, and so like our Friends just voted to support that. If we're going to Friends for another purpose, like we want to have them contribute to some general fund, will this be okay outside of the budget process, or are we waiting till next year's budget? Do you understand my question?
I think that's a good point, and it's something that we can discuss when we talk about this more in depth in October. Okay. So maybe send that question to Tracy.
She heard it, I saw it.
I know, but you put it so eloquently, Commissioner May. Okay, Ad Hoc SOP Committee 6.2.6, and I think Commissioner Foxson has volunteered to give that report because she's been doing all the work recently.
Tom Hauser and Helena and I all took separate sections of an outline that we had developed and did the research to fill in. And I volunteered to take it and integrate it all. It's been interesting because there was a lot of overlapping information, which some of it was conflicting, and I had to kind of sort it out to some degree. there were some big holes, and I'm having to go through and fill in some of those holes so the whole thing begins to make some sense. So this has been my primary aim, and I'm hoping by September I'll have it all done to give out to the commission so they can go through and then tear it apart and I can redo everything again. So that's basically where I'm at.
So the committee will try to meet between now and September
Absolutely.
to work on that too. Okay, thank you very much. Measure Y oversight, that meeting, I think Measure Y is, the committee is going to be meeting next week, the 16th, and that will be their first meeting. So it'll be interesting to see. I think Ken is probably planning to give them volumes of material. Okay, they're looking forward to it, I'm sure.
All the committee responded? They're all coming?
All but one, who is Tom Ford can't. He's going to be out of town.
Oh, Tom Ford?
Yeah, but he'll get the materials. So we'll have more to report next month on that. All right. Any comments about agenda item 6? I know Tracy had sent us some links to some coverage as part of her update recently. It's very nice to see that. Thank you. So, any comments on press coverage, correspondence? Okay, so the consent calendar, are there any items that any commission member or member of the public wishes to be removed from the consent calendar?
Yes. Down here.
Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to pull 8.4, the commission schedule for a little discussion, and 8.6, the work comp issue.
Okay, and I think that there are a couple of typos in the minutes. I'm not sure if they can be corrected. They're not major substantive items, but there's some typos that... Do we need to pull that from the consent calendar to make those corrections? Okay. Well, Tom Hauser requests that item 8.1 be pulled from the consent calendar to make some corrections.
Just wanted to...
I don't think it's on.
Okay, is that on?
No.
Green light's on. It's not working.
Now it's on, I think. There you go. Yeah.
Agenda number 8.6, Commissioner McKenzie made mention that it was the workman's comp, and it's not a workman's comp contract. That was okayed last. It's the 457 plan.
It's a deferred comp.
Deferred comp plan.
Last month.
And there's some follow-up discussion in...
Oh, no, it's 9.5 discussion item.
Right.
So can we leave 8.6?
Oh, actually, on 8.6, I just had one question. Very brief.
Your mic's not on. Okay. So I guess we'll have to pull it to have that question.
Just quick, very quick.
Action item.
Well, they can go down to action items. Item number 10. 8.1, 8.4, and 8.6 will be moved down under item 10, action items, by motion. Okay, so the remaining items on the consent calendar are 8.2, approve Occidental Station Library contract, lease. 8.3, approve Envisionware contract renewal. 8.5, approve management non-represented and SEIU salary schedules. I actually had a question about the management / non-represented position salary schedule.
So we're going to pull that.
So we're going to pull that too, sorry.
8.2, 8.3.
Okay, so that leaves 8.2 and 8.3. All right. Those two items will be approved by consent by the commission, and the rest of the items that were pulled, 8.1, 8.4, 8.5, 8.6, will go under action items by motion, item 10. Okay, so now we're going to move to item 9, discussion items, interim director's report, that should say.
Okay, so in addition to my written report, I just wanted to publicly thank the Sonoma County Public Library Foundation for their Cinema and Chocolate fundraiser on Thursday night. It was great to see a sellout crowd, and I know all the proceeds are going to library programs and events, so I wanted to thank them. It was a great event. We are continuing to look at staffing and recruitment. Keo, I, and Suzanne, our HR manager, met last week to look at the order and priorities we've been looking at with the operation management team on recruitment schedules. We're now up on CalOps. I'm going to report a little bit about human resources tonight since Suzanne is not here. So that is the new system that we will be posting jobs and then receiving applications. The good thing is it'll cut down on the previous format we were using relied on PDFs, and PDFs come in a variety depending on people's computers. So this will be a much user-friendly system, and it will be able to track our applications and so forth. So we're looking forward to using that system. And then I did want to just update everyone. I will be talking, when I talk in my weekly meeting with Commissioner Whistler, on updating the Library Advisory Board application. The application we have on our website has our old logo. It's a little outdated. It needs some more information. For instance, there's not a box to check for teen advisory and so forth. So two of the branch managers, Lisa Musgrove and Bill from Windsor, are also helping to look at that, and I've been getting a lot of feedback from the branch managers on that process, so we'll be taking that to the commission probably in September, and we'll try to get a seamless process for that. And then this week, Catherine Reinhardt, our history and genealogy manager, is taking a few staff, including myself, on a tour of the archives. I've not been to the archives yet, so I'm looking forward to that. And I've been attending the Historical Records Commission meetings, and then also next week I have a preliminary meeting with the Sonoma County Administrator to talk preliminary about the archives and the future of the archives, since our lease does expire in the building in 2020, so to kind of look a little into the future to try to prepare about the possibility of where the archives could go if they have something else that they'll be utilizing that building. And then I did want to mention the solar eclipse is gaining so much momentum and interest. I want to thank Kathy DeWeese, because last year she actually put together, she was on top of it a while ago about, she organized some programs, and then Lisa Musgrove also initiated getting glasses for all of the branches, and Chris Lavanish and Catherine Greco, our graphic designer, pulled some things together, and it's been a sellout. A lot of the staff have built book displays revolved around astronomy and so forth, and we've had a lot of people coming in the library asking for glasses, so it's been a great way to get new people into the door. and to talk to them about other library services and so forth. So that's been a really a fun last week or two. I know the branch managers have been calling around each other. Do you have any left? Can we send patrons to your branch and so forth? So that's been getting a lot of interest. And then I also want to thank Lisa Musgrove, Nancy Cledon, Angelina Cassiopo, Catherine Greco. They're working on the brochure that will be kind of new patrons when they walk in to get a New Year's user's guide. And then they're going to present to Keo and I a finished product, which we hope to have finished by the end of August, so we can give to people who get new library cards that has information. And then the second part of the project, where Matthew Rose and Nancy Sampson, branch managers, will be working on looking at all the bookmarks we have in the library to sort of keep with our strategic plan on being green and giving people something that updating our information that we hand out. And then the third part of that project that Catherine Greco and Angelina will be working on is something for the outreach tables that to give for, especially when the friends are at the farmers market and so forth. So we hope to have everything completed by middle or end of September, all of that. So we'll have some new updated materials to give everyone. And then I do want to thank Suzanne Silva and Carmen Lopez Caswell, who are two HR staff who have been helping all of the staff get through the open enrollments of Calpers. We switched to Calpers, and it's a lot of paperwork, and they've put a lot of time and energy and extra time and energy in the last month or so helping staff get through the new process of our open enrollment, and they've done a fantastic job and very patient with all of the questions they've been receiving from not only our staff but retirees as well. And also we currently have there was a grant written several months ago through the California State Library to get a mental health coordinator to come and do mental health training for staff to help deal with patrons who come in with mental health issues and connecting them to resources. So several of our staff have been doing the trainings. They've been half-day trainings, and that's been very well received. The grant funds this temporary staff through the end of August. We're hoping to find ways to fund it further because it's been very well received, and a lot of staff have said we'd like to continue and have more staff be able to take the training. So it's a possibility of, I know the foundation has been asking for what they can fund, so it's possibly something that I may submit to the foundation because it's serving an underserved area. If you saw the Press Democrat over the weekend had a 2-page article on mental health issues in Sonoma County, so and it fits well with our strategic plan. So I think that's it.
That's a lot, thanks. Are there, Commissioner May?
Well, and also Commissioner McKenzie.
And
I
then
have a couple of questions. I'm happy to hear you about the fact that at the September meeting you're coming with proposals about the lab process, because I don't want to forget that we are the people who appoint the lab members, so I'm glad we'll have a chance to have an input on that. I'm also wondering, I've been on this commission for a long time, and I vaguely remember that at some point we got statistics. I'm wondering, if I remember correctly, there is an annual report to the State Library, and I imagine it's filled with statistics. Have we upped our number of cards? Are our checkouts increased? What's the participation in our children's program? I'd love it if we are a part of knowing those kinds of things, so that we have these wonderful anecdotes, but that we also have statistics about what's going on. And then I'll just call out the story about the grandfather reading his book was enough to me to sleep very happily.
About the report to the State Library, Director Gray and I have talked about that before it goes to the State Library, it should be shared with the Commission. So I don't know what the time line on that is. Do you remember when that?
The State Library statistics are fiscal, so for this year, it ended in June, so we'll be compiling that. Usually, I think Jaylene did it last year, so we'll get what we can to you before.
Okay, so maybe we could just, it might be ready by September?
Hopefully.
Okay, we can have that on the agenda.
And I also have one other question on page 57. What's PRA? It says HR, which I know, is completing the Calpers benefits enrollment despite the PRA requests. What's PRA?
Oh, Public Records Act request.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Commissioner McKenzie and then Commissioner Foxen.
I had that same question about PRA, so now that I know what it is, how does that pertain to this completion of the Calpers enrollment?
My reading of it was that it was time-consuming to respond to the Public Record Act requests. There were multiple things requested.
Okay.
And we're hiring staff in that area. I don't know that they're all on board yet. Is that correct?
Right. We interviewed for the HR analyst, and we're hoping to have somebody on board sometime this month.
Okay, so I had just a couple of very quick things in that same section. I see that we have several impending retirements, and HR is in the process of developing a how to retire guide for our commission standpoint. It'd be great. Eventually, we could have a future report on kind of a time frame on. It sounds like there's something big coming, like a big wave of retirement. So,
I don't have the number, but I'll definitely talk to Suzanne and have if there is a big wave, we'll definitely have a report on that.
Okay, because that obviously would affect our OPEB for one thing. And then on the page 58, the employee, the little graph that shows employee job and status, maybe for in the future, if we could have a section that showed which branch those folks were in.
Definitely.
And lastly, there's so much going on. I'm really impressed. I don't know how you get all this done, you and all the staff. It's very impressive. Under public services, it talks about lawyers in the library, which sounds like a wonderful offering for the public. And I haven't seen a flyer on that. And I was curious if there was one that mentions all the times in the branches and if that's in distribution.
Sure, that's a great program. It was actually initiated by our previous director, Brett Lear, and Vandy Tompkins from Central had worked on that for several months, just with the agreements with lawyers and getting people on board. And we're also partnering with the Sonoma County Law Library, so some of the lawyers in the library are actually happening at the Sonoma County Law Library as well. The first few that we did in June, because we weren't sure how much attendance we would get because there is a limit and it's first come, first serve. So we kind of did a soft rollout, but now it's on our website and we do have some flyers that are distributed throughout the branches. And I believe we're scheduled, the lawyers in the library will be at several different branches over the next 8 to 9 months we have scheduled out. And so far, the attendance has been, I think it's capped at about 6 to 8 based on the sessions. And we've been getting an average 3 to 5 people for the event, which is just the right amount.
I'm not sure that just being on the website is adequate for the people that might need legal services. And just in terms of the flyer, I mean, it may be down at our branch, I just haven't seen it.
Right. I believe they also put in a request to get the flyers for the branches as well.
Commissioner Foxen?
I want to thank you for encouraging the training of libraries to deal with mental health. I know when I was in high school, which is back in the 50s, I worked in the library and a man came in and definitely had some issues, and I watched the librarians work with him, and later I was asking him why, they were doing that. You know, he seemed crazy, get rid of him. And they said, no, he comes in here to be safe, so we need to make sure he's safe and gets what he needs, and that everybody else is safe and they get what they need. And ever since then, I've been a big proponent of that, and I want to thank you.
All right. Any other comments or questions about the management report? All right, so we did them in any area. So we kind of are segueing into the monthly activities report, which deals with other areas. Are there any questions about anything else in that? I did, but I'll ask them later. So then we're moving on to the monthly financial report, item 9.2.2.
All right, it starts on page 65, and it's the end of the year. This is June financials. As Commissioner McKenzie said, the monthly reports weren't ready for the Finance Committee because we were closing out the year. And you can see our cash balance is a little over $10 million at the end of the year, and we received 105% of our budgeted revenue through the end of the year, and we spent about 99% of the total budgeted expenses. What that resulted in is a excess of expenses over revenues of $253,000. And you'll remember that part of the budget process last year, we were going to use approximately $1.2 million of the fund balance. So we only used $250,000 of the fund balance. The reason behind that is a couple things. The tax revenue, or the overall revenue, we got in $800,000 more than was budgeted, and then we didn't spend the $300,000 that we had set aside for the Northwest refresh, as we're pushing that into next year or this year. So.
Does this tax revenue include any of the sales tax money? Because I thought you had said that some came in June.
Right. What I just reported on to keep it consistent through the end of the year is only the general fund with the property tax. So we'll go back to page, is that 70? Okay. Which shows the financial report for the sales tax fund, as we've been seeing this for the past 3 months, and it's only been expenses. But you'll see that we received $672,000 in sales tax revenue right at the end of June. But that's not included in those totals I talked about before.
Okay.
And then back there, we also spent, $476,000 of the $672 that we thought we would spend during those 2 or 3 months. The majority of the money not spent were in 2 vehicles. You can see down there under capital expenses or machinery and equipment that we didn't spend $96,000 of that money because they aren't here yet. They still aren't here, but they'll be coming soon, hopefully.
Maybe they'll bring in shelf ends with them.
Yeah. They always take longer than you'd like. It's interesting, it always happens this time of year, as we can leave the year open a little bit longer, and the reason we do it is to get into all the expenses. And as you can see on page 65, the over $25,000, there was 2 months worth of PG&E. Normally we're running 1 month behind because we get the bill about the 10th of the month for the prior month, and so we aren't able to put that into the monthly balances, but the year end allows us to get things like that in that are always rolling over to the next month. That's about it, unless anyone has any questions about specific items.
Okay, I see none. Commissioner May.
I have, what you say PG&E, are you using that generically? Or I thought we were doing Sonoma Clean Power, or are we not? Or
It all comes in on the PG&E bill.
Okay.
There's a line for each branch for gas, a line for PG&E electric, and then a line for Sonoma Clean Power electric. So, yeah, it's all on the PG&E bill, but yes, it includes that.
And I just want to be clear, because I sometimes get into the fog when I see these numbers. Basically, this year we have no surplus.
Right.
Other years we have gotten more income than we spent. This is the first year in a while that I know of that we have spent more than we got.
Right.
That's a good summary?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
I just wanted to be sure I understood.
Yes.
Thank you.
If we integrate the Y money, though, aren't we about even?
Yes. If we
had a little,
there's other funds.
Underspent on Y money.
Right.
And overspent on non-Y money.
Correct. Yes. It is about even.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, that takes us to 9.3, changes to the 2017-2018 staffing. Director Gray.
So this portion of the report, myself and all the division managers went through each staffing addition for the 17-18 budget that was approved, and we just went through to make sure each position was the position we needed. So on here are just some of the changes that based on the needs over the last few months. So on page 72, it's kind of even, the total FTE not needed to be filled, and then that on the bottom, the FTE requested to be added. Our Central Library Services Specialist had been a vacant position. John Hopp, the branch manager at Healdsburg, determined the half-time library specialist there wasn't needed. And then with facilities, we felt there was a need, especially as all of our facilities are aging with the renovations, with adding library headquarters, having more facility mechanics available, looking at their work orders and the amount of work orders they get on a daily basis. And then the teen librarian at Guerneville, when I was at coffee with the director in Guerneville, some of the community members even mentioned a need to have a teen librarian out in the West County. So that was there. And then on page 73 are just some changes that were needed. For instance, the digital content coordinator, that was meant to be a librarian 2 position on the staffing salary and proposal that you all received with the back in April. This was a lower level position, but it is typically librarian duties to order the digital materials. So it would be the ebooks, the audiobooks, all of the e-resources we get, and we're adding more materials and more vendors. So this is pretty standard librarian work, so that is the revised. And then having a supervising children's librarian, this would be only the second public service librarian 3 in our system. Due to the high volume of classroom visits and students in Santa Rosa, this will give the opportunity to increase those enhancements to children's services at Central. It's also a staff development opportunity for staff who want to get experience in supervising roles before maybe becoming a branch manager. So that's also a good reason to have that position. And then the last two, number 3 and 4, are number 4 is in talking with OMT and the human resources manager, the volunteer coordinator, we felt having a full-time administrative assistant in human resources, where part of their job was assisting with coordinating volunteers. Some of the branches don't have that many volunteers. Some do it themselves. It was sort of mixed between the branches of, I asked the branch managers, do you feel we need a volunteer coordinator? This administrative assistant would assist in helping with that job function along with Keo and the branch managers, but they would also be available to do other things. And then number 3 is pretty much a discussion for you all to have based on right now our administrative assistant to the commission is splitting her time, half time doing the commission work and then half time in human resources. So if you all felt the need to have the work, a full-time person assisting with the commission, then it would break up that position. I don't know if there's any questions on that.
Comments? Questions? Commissioner Hauser?
You're saying number 3 is something for us to decide. When would the time for that decision be? Tonight or next month or a couple of months or what? Discussion.
Well, since it is a discussion, it would be up to you all, and then we would change that at a future meeting.
Okay, future date for decision discussion tonight.
Correct.
Commissioner Foxen?
Well, I'd be interested to have some input from Jane, since she's, I believe, the person that's been split in half. I know I've been acutely aware that more and more has been coming from her, so it seems like her workload has been increasing, and it has actually increased markedly since she's come into the position. So I'd be interested in getting some feedback from her.
And if I could just say, when as a half-time assigned to the commission, there are times I'm reluctant to add work to her load because I'm not sure, how much she's doing for human resources. But there are a lot of projects that I would love to have assigned to her to start working on that would assist the commission. One being to go through policies and work to get them on the intranet so that they're accessible to all commissioners, things like that,
Yeah, and is this person coming in human resources, the administrative assistant, is that person taking over what Jane has been doing and carrying with, I know I'm talking about you, okay, but what she has been doing in that area, I mean, is it going to mesh out so that
I don't know exactly what that person will be doing for HR, but I know that they could definitely use full-time help in that area. They're continuing to hire more people, there's more training, there's things to monitor, policies to get written. I don't know all. Tracy will probably have a better idea.
Sure. So I think I listed one of just an example of an administrative assistant in HR would oversee the CalOps and the job openings, and then keeping track when the job posting closes and gathering all of the applicants and distributing it to the hiring committee and scheduling the room and calling the candidates for interviewing and then following up with the letter. And that's just one job for, that's all the steps needed for just one recruitment. And that's just one piece of an HR administrative assistant's work. So there's definitely enough for full-time work.
I wanted to support the idea of having a full-time Jane. I think that we all are aware that when we were total bare bones budget in the past, before the voters voted for Measure Y, we were just doing what we could to hold things together, and we were in real need of help with the commission, and the former HR director was in real need of help, and so we kind of cobbled together this kind of nutty position of, half HR, half commission, and it didn't really make any sense, but it was the best we could do. And there's certainly a lot of work that is coming out of the commission. There's going to be changes coming forward, and there's certainly a full panoply of things that Jane can help us with, and I'm really in support of having a full-time dedicated commission administrative assistant, just for my 2 cents.
Commissioner Hauser?
If Jane becomes full-time with commission, does that mean we have to hire a half-time person to fill her half that we're taking away, or does that mean number 4 is going to take her half-time and then be an extra half-time for human resources?
Correct.
Second one?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to say we're making an assumption. We don't hire, and maybe Jane doesn't want to stay with us. Maybe she wants to go to HR. So I just want to be sure that we don't make an assumption that it's Jane, although I wouldn't be unhappy if she were to leave. But I just want to make sure that we understand we're talking about a position, not a person.
I think it's fun.
What?
I think we've explored those avenues. So we have her opinion on where she would like to be, and but it is about a position being full time, whether that's Jane or some other person.
Okay.
But, yeah. Go ahead.
If our chair feels it's appropriate that we have a full-time position, which I think she's come out and said rather strongly and has ideas of how to use a full-time person, I think we should have a proposal at our next commission meeting or the following one, whenever you want to schedule it, to vote on that.
Okay. All right. So, any other comments about Commissioner McKenzie?
I just had one quick thing at the bottom, and this came out in the Finance Committee. We talked about the net increase in salary and benefits, and it is $38,000. And I'm just wondering if everyone is clear why we do not do a budget adjustment when it's $38,000. I'm not quite clear.
So what is it you're looking at, Barbara?
Well, the bottom line, that net increase with all the pluses and minuses, it comes out to $38,000.
At this point in time, I mean, we could do a budget adjustment if you wish, but at the same time, we're currently have quite a few positions that have been approved in the 17-18 budget that haven't been hired, so we're recognizing the savings as we speak. So that's why I stated that we didn't need to do a budget adjustment at this time.
Okay. Savings based on unfilled positions at current time. Yeah, thank you. I just thought we should go on record with that since it's over $25,000.
All right. Anyone else? Okay. So moving, thank you for this information, and I think we'll look forward to next month. So item 9.4, library headquarters.
Okay, so the commission had asked for more details at the last commission meeting. So I've included the rationale of other administrative staff moving to the headquarters. That's listed in here. And then I've included the staff list. So on page 76, you'll see the staff positions in red are who we are planning to move to headquarters. And then for future, on the bottom left, additional possibilities are those positions. Those currently, after the move to headquarters, those positions, which many are not filled yet, we will be hiring for, and those positions, those staff will be moving to the finance department on Central's upper level. in those offices. And then included on page 76 are all the materials management positions that were originally part of the move. So the red is just the additional 11 staff who would be moving. And then on page 77 includes all of the staff who will remain at Central. So you see it's a pretty large amount of staff that we're fitting into Central. And it's still going to be really tight, which is why we have a potential maybe phase 2 of the positions in green that we will have space for at library headquarters in Rohnert Park. However, with the additional staff includes additional workspaces and so forth, so we may not be able to move them just yet, maybe next fiscal and so forth. And then on page 78, it's pretty small, but it is a blueprint of what it's going to look like. And I did bring a larger one that if anyone wants to view afterwards, that isn't as small, we can lay that out as well. So I did bring the larger setup of the space.
Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner McKenzie.
Yes, I really appreciate this. It's a very helpful, enlightening. I appreciate the information, the red, what's in red. It's easy to see what your thinking is. I was curious, my question was how and when was it going to be cited, the people or the positions in green, and I believe you're saying looking at next fiscal year before that might happen.
Possibly. We just met last week with our the group who's doing the ordering of furniture and so forth, but because we had a certain budget we were using, it may be waiting to see and moving these at a later date. And then I have down there eventually, ideally it'd be great if information technology department didn't have to be in the lower level at Central, but that would depend on where we could house the servers and so forth, but that's a possibility later in the future as well.
So are you saying the capacity at the Rohnert Park lease space as it is, that's capacity, could accommodate virtually everybody in headquarters, including IT eventually?
IT would be tight because we do in the plan have a couple, we want to have the technology training room and a couple meeting rooms. So adding IT would be tight later down the road, so we'd have to look at that space in the future. And then this would be at capacity, so any of the departments, if we needed more staff in HR and so forth. So we're pretty much at capacity, but we do have space for the staff in green.
Okay. And then my last question was, I was just mildly concerned that the biggest meeting space has apparently 12 seats.
Correct. So I did clarify that with our team that we're working on, and it was based on the tables they were ordering, but we clarified that, and it will hold up to 24, I believe.
Oh, that's a lot better.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Commissioner May.
I have a question about, I know things are in a bit of flux, but essentially, currently below the director, there are 3 divisions? Currently, is that right?
In the organization chart, do you mean?
Yes.
So currently, human resources, finance, materials management, public service, and IT.
So there are 5. But then basically IT stays at Central, and it's questionable about public services. That's in green. So public services will either be there or at Central?
Correct. So currently in this plan, just the ones in red, so it would be the library director, human resources, and financial services in headquarters. Public services and information technology would remain at Central. So there would be the direct reports to the director wouldn't be in the same building. However, how it was analyzed was according to the finance services team was originally all going to move, and the CFO was going to stay at Central. However, the need to have human resources and finance together, because those two divisions do the most conversing daily. And in the last 2.5 months, with my experience in signing purchase orders and talking directly with the CFO and human resources, more on a daily basis than the other division managers. So that's kind of how it was construed of.
But in other words, these two positions would need to commute to any meetings you have at the new headquarters?
Correct.
Okay, and then my other question is there a plan for the current director's office to become a conference room?
Yes, that was the plan, to utilize it as an extra meeting space right now.
Okay.
Or after the move, yes.
Any other comment? Commissioner Foxen?
I just have a question. At this point in time, committee meetings are being held at Central. Are they going to move down to the new headquarters, or what's the deal? Because at this point in time, it's Jane. Our commission person is down there, and I just wondered where we were going to end up.
Sure. Since there will be an opportunity, it will be up to the commission that some of the meetings could still be at Central, since we'll still have the boardroom for any kinds of public or staff meetings, and then having the current director's office at Central, if that's a small meeting space, that could also be utilized. And then there's the meeting space at the headquarters that could be for the meetings as well. So it'll give us more scheduling opportunity and part of the reason of building some of the meeting rooms and the training center at the headquarters is, at the last month's commission meeting, I had mentioned our April recruitment. We had to utilize the central forum room, and we had to displace some of the public events from Central. For example, our story times had to be in the story time room, and sometimes we get 50 to 60 people in strollers, and so this will give us an opportunity to have the meetings at headquarters, at Central, at another branch, but there will be more meeting room space to utilize.
I think one other option that's important to recognize is that we can minimize some of the driving by some of the information technology tools we have, like Zoom video conferencing and things like that. We use that regularly when we need to talk to vendors and to attend webinars and things like that. So, it is something that you could attend a meeting virtually, either by teleconference or by video conferencing, and it does work very, very well.
Thank you. Commissioner Hauser, you had a comment?
Is this a one-story plan or a two-story plan?
For library headquarters, is one story.
One story.
Yes.
Because I thought I heard about something about a second story or something.
Oh, that was at Central. Okay.
So this is just all one story. Thank you.
Is this an action item?
No.
Okay.
Discussion.
Just wanted to check.
Any other comments? Other comments from staff? Okay. So the next step is that the plan is to move in November?
The original plan was, not original, but we were shooting for October 1st, and we'll see. As soon as we can.
Don't start telling people we're doing it.
And I think one of the holdups was we didn't have a facilities manager, right? So now we have a facilities manager.
Correct. We had many delays in this project, so, and we, Dave and Ken and I had a meeting with the owner's project manager last week, and they know they want to get us in as quick as possible too. So we're working together to make it as fast as possible.
Okay. All right. So moving on to item 9. Thank you very much for all of that detail, and I know that took a lot of work to put all that together, but I think the commission appreciates it quite a bit. And thank you for all of you who sit so patiently through our meetings. So moving on to item 9.5, follow up on workers' compensation insurance policy.
Yeah, last month there were a few questions after you approved the workman's compensation insurance. They're listed there on page 79 on the agenda item cover sheet, and they're pretty self-explanatory. I don't know if anyone has any further questions, or you want me to go over them. Or
Commissioner McKenzie?
Yeah, I'm the one that kind of asked a lot of questions about this because we had some inconsistencies on the storage spaces for some of the Friends, but not all of the Friends, and then asked that question, which all the Friends were at All Friends Day were very concerned about whether they had coverage. So now the clarification is that none of the Friends extra storage spaces are covered, and it's clarifying that Friends doing Friends work is not covered in the library.
Right, for workers' comp.
Right, for workers' comp. So what kind of coverage do Friends working in the library, say, hauling books back and forth to the book sale and all that stuff? There's no coverage whatsoever. They get hurt. There's not any liability coverage or anything.
Well, there's liability. It falls under the library's liability policy if it's found that the library was negligent in any way that caused the injury. But just like any normal policy.
If they get hurt themselves, they trip and fall and the library's not responsible, there's no coverage for any of the Friends in the library. So is there a recommendation for what Friends groups should do to, I think it's kind of I don't know if it was an unusual situation anyway for, a group of volunteers to operate within, another, entity's space. And I just think there's, we need to let the Friends know, if we're going to recommend that they take out some sort of policy themselves or not. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of heavy lifting and moving books around, and, there's issues.
They are separate entities, and they would have to go out and get their own insurance and talk to their own insurance agent to find out what kind of coverage they think they need, because it would be a cost to them. I don't know, as a library, if we want to start recommending what coverage they should have for an entity that's really not the library.
Well, I only meant in the sense that I think everybody's just kind of innocent about whether there's coverage or not, and that we should probably make it clear that there isn't, and then let the boards of directors know that if they want to get some sort of coverage for all their volunteers, they should.
Okay.
Because right now they're just kind of like, it's my understanding when we went through All Friends Day, there was, just kind of a lot of lack of clarity for that. So, and I just also, my last question was, so we decreased the amount of, certainly the amount of spaces covered by our work comp. Did the price go down? Did the premium go down?
The workman's comp is all, it's all built on compensation.
Okay.
And so there's different rates for each classification of employee. So the physical locations really have nothing to do with the cost.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Hauser, you had a comment?
No. I withdraw my comment.
Commissioner May?
I think Commissioner McKenzie said it, but I think it's incumbent upon us to let the Friends know. And it might be that the Friends, there's I don't know whether it still exists, but there's the Friends Presidents Group, and that might be a way to go through that. But it might even be that the Friends organizations in the county could combine to get a policy. But I think that it's something they need to be aware of. Okay. And I think it's incumbent upon us to let them know that they're not covered. Right.
Maybe we could talk about that at the next Finance Committee meeting, just briefly, an idea on how we could go about doing that. Whether it's to ask our attorney to send us a letter that we could share, or because I don't want us to give them incorrect information and have 11 commissioners go out to their friends groups.
No, it's not really that difficult. I think they just need to know that for workman's comp, they aren't covered under the library's policy. The contents of what they have, their books and everything, is covered under our liability policy, and that's why those different properties were put on the policy.
Right. I understand it, but I think sometimes the layperson may not understand that when you're, to explain to somebody, when you're operating as a volunteer for your friend's group and you're doing your friend's work, you're not covered. If you're volunteering in the library, mending books or shelving books or whatever else you might do, then you are covered. So I think people can get confused.
Okay.
Maybe Tracy and I can just talk about it.
Okay. Thank you, Ken.
Thanks, Ken. Thanks for clarifying those questions, too. So now we come to the 9.6 naming draft policy.
So this is a draft of the library naming policy. Ken had worked on this with our previous director, Brett Lear, and we brought an updated draft. It came about also in relation to the Rosalind Coalition, and so this is just a draft. Sonoma County Libraries never had a naming rights policy. Many libraries do. So if there's any comments or suggestions for this.
Commissioner May.
I may call on Keo for this, but I recall that there was a policy when we did the annex for, and it may be that the lab came up with the policy, but I thought the commission acted on it. When we did the remodeling of the forum room in Petaluma, there was an offer that if the room were to be named after somebody, a significant amount of money would be given. And I know that the lab in Petaluma at that point really suggested, which this policy is changing, that naming be in response to somebody who'd made a significant non-monetary contribution to the library instead of monetary. And I thought that had gone to the commission for approval. And I'm not sure how many years ago that was, but it was many. So basically, there may be an existent policy somewhere in the tomb of policies. But I did have a question on this on page 107, page 2 of the draft. It says appropriate financial contributions, and I'm sure that that's open for on purpose vague, but it's vague. How much do you give to get a name? Is it a certain amount of money for a certain square footage? I kind of want more meat, and I think we as a commission really do need to decide whether we want to allow, and I don't have a position either way at this point, but really moving into the fact that people can buy a naming in the library, which may be a good thing or maybe not, but it's a decision that I think is a change. I'm not sure, but I have a memory of that being.
Please come down, Q, if you would like to say something.
What? Yes.
Oh, so I think Commissioner May remembers right that we did have a $50,000 offer if we matching the donation, but I think it was the Petaluma Library Advisory Board who rejected that offer, thinking that that person did not have any direct relationship with the service of the Petaluma Library. It was the monetary donation, I think. We took the first $50,000, but this was the second $50,000 offer. Okay. But I think it was the lab's decision.
Not the commission.
I don't think it came, because it was a unanimous decision by the Petaluma lab, but you remember that correctly.
I do.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Garcia.
This has come about to build the Rosalind Library. And an example would be the Schultz Library on the Sonoma State campus was built by the Schultz family, and it was named for them. And we're looking to see if can we have a Rosalind Library, not the library itself, but rooms like the children's reading room and things like that. That's how, and so the request, was there even a policy, came about.
Commissioner McKenzie.
I appreciate Commissioner Garcia's comments. I think there's also, potential that any of the branches could, somebody would want something named after them. And to Commissioner May's response or question, I do see the second paragraph under purpose. It does say, for purposes of naming rooms in a building, furnishings, or equipment, considered when the person has given distinguished service that merit. So I think that's instead of money. I think it is.
Right. It's still there, but we're adding money.
Okay. So under 108, indexation, at the discretion of the library director, the levels of financial contributions quoted above. So do I not have those, or they're not in here? I don't know what the levels are. Did I miss something?
Oh, yeah, I don't see levels.
I mean, this is what Commissioner May was talking about. It's kind of big, but I don't see where we have any sort of set limits, like $1 million and you get a chair or something.
$1 million, you get a room.
Yeah.
At least the lights were. Maybe a bag.
I mean, one suggestion might be, just because this is kind of a lot to take on and it's late and there's a lot of detail there, we might want to farm this out to a small group of commissioners who might want to come back with maybe some of these financial levels and some other information, working with our interim director on a little more.
Director Gray was going to make a comment in response.
Oh, sure. So, yeah, the choice, some of the drafts of other libraries do have the dollar amount specifically, so that would be a question of, it is in here being vague, but there's the option of dividing it by levels. But I think, if it's a work group to come up with some of that, we can put a couple different proposals together.
Commissioner Foxen?
This is an opinion of mine. I don't like buying your way in. I have a hard time with that. But I remember reading, and I'm sitting here desperately trying to think about which library it was. They named their rooms after people who gave actual service to the library, and they had a wall for those who gave money and put their names on the wall. Really nice. I remember seeing a picture of it. I can't think where it was. I'll have to go home and research it. But the wall was the money, and the rooms were the people who actually did something.
Commissioner May?
I don't know who put together this draft, but My question, I think it's Ken, but I'm not sure. My question is, was there a reason for the vagueness? Vagueness.
Financial.
The financial vagueness.
There was not. It was just not knowing the dollar amounts.
Okay, so there's not a reason. If we were to come up with a chart of X equals Z, that would not be a counter to what the draft was trying to accomplish.
No, and looking at all of the drafts, we were basically leaving it up to what the commission thought. If you wanted it to be left vague, to determine on a case-by-case basis when financial contributions were given, or if you wanted to have it in the policy of broken out by the dollar amounts. We could do either.
Okay.
Commissioner Hauser?
All due respect to you, Commissioner Fox, and if somebody were to give us $2 million for the Rosalind Library, I'd stick their name on it. And so maybe what we do need to do is think in terms of a foundation or the commission or whatever, going out there and really looking for some big bucks, if that's what's going to happen to make Rosalind happen. And, you know, that's the way our society works now. Wells Fargo Center.
The problem.
You know, I don't particularly like it either. I don't think it's appropriate. You wouldn't get my name on anything. But that's what a lot of people like. So if we really got the money, I would probably say yes.
Well, I know that at Newport Beach, which is a very, very wealthy area, I know that's one place there's a wall. But this library I was thinking about was someplace else. But a huge wall, very nice, and everybody has their name on it. And it's very obvious when you walk through the door that this is what it is, in the recognition of it. And I do have trouble with people buying things. And that is one of the things that I feel is wrong with our society. And why contribute to it?
Commissioner Heavenridge?
Yes, I think this is really important to have naming rights policy. I'm concerned about the back end. So if someone gave money for a room or whatever, what is the process that goes behind that? Where does the money go to? I know we have a foundation, but well, we won't get into that in this meeting. But you know, I think we need to, along with the naming policy, have a clear financial step-by-step process where it goes to, where it comes in. I would be for something like this, I would promote having it go directly to the library and have a policy for that. So I think that's a really serious discussion that we need to have if we're going to move forward with something like this. So that's my comment.
Commissioner May?
My reading of this is this: it does not include the ability to name a branch.
Correct. Since we don't own any of our buildings, then it's not up to the library.
Well, we could name the annex.
So I just wanted to interject that I did attend one of the Rosalind Coalition meetings, and some of the members of that group are very interested in moving forward with fundraising, and they really asked us to expedite a policy that would recognize donors because they felt that it's important to move quickly to garner the enthusiasm that many major donors in Sonoma County have at the moment. So I would like to encourage the commission, if you would like to weigh in more on this policy, that the sooner the better. We really need to get this moving. It's something that we can amend in the future if we decide that it's not meeting the the needs of either us or our community, but I would like to encourage us to move forward with this. Commissioner May and then Commissioner Hauser.
My question is it possible to find library systems of similar size and see if they have a chart of equivalences?
I do have some examples of charts, so I could put maybe one that has a chart in it, a proposal. So this one is vague, and then we could create one that has the chart. And this is for, sometimes libraries get donations, but they don't want their name anywhere. It's just here's.
Right. This is for people who want it.
Right.
Right.
Commissioner Hauser.
Having been through a few capital campaigns in my life, I understand what the Rosalind Coalition is saying, and I think we owe it to them to give a specific dollar amount for certain kinds of recognition. This is the Tom Hauser room, if I give so much, and everybody who gives is on the wall for sure. I mean, I'm on a few walls there, never a room though. Never had that big case that I could do that with. But I think we really owe it to them, because when you're going out to the community, there are people that want to know that. And if that's what they're trying to do right now, we should be working on this and giving them something. And we should probably be asking them what they think, because that's really what this comes around, is Rosalind.
Commissioner McKenzie.
I would again suggest that those of you who are working on this particular issue, the Rosalind Library, be a subcommittee and come back with a specific recommendation to us next week or next month. And so that would be, Commissioner Garcia and our chair and our acting director, interim director, I'm sorry, and possibly the fact that this is a separate situation, building the Roseland branch is a separate situation from the rest of our naming policies. I mean, maybe we want, because this is a really specific, different question. In the past, all the other branches have been built by cities or jurisdictions, and this is different. So maybe we have a different situation here. I don't know. But anyway, that'd be my suggestion. If you want to have something have quickly, we're not going to get there in a full commission meeting, but if you bring back recommendations next month for a vote.
Well, I do want to just point out to the Commission that we have not had a naming policy for our library system, and it's something that we have talked about over the years of something we need. So while we do need to try to expedite this, it is something that all library systems should have to refer to. Commissioner Foxen.
I just have a question. Are we going to own the building for the Roseland Library, or is that going to be a Santa Rosa building?
That's a good question. I don't know that that's been resolved yet.
Okay. Yeah, that was just a question I had.
I would be happy at the next meeting to vote on a policy that included a chart of a system of our size. If there's a system of our size that has a chart, I would be happy to vote on it at the next meeting.
We can have that. I can get that together for the next meeting. One thing I thought of is when you have, say, if it's a campaign for Roseland, if we have something in the policy that says if you've given $50,000 or more, we'll name a room, and we only have 2 rooms, and you get 10 donors, does it end up being named, over several people? So
Yeah,
that's just something to
names.
consider.
Don't worry about it. Be happy when it happens.
Okay, so is that soon enough to vote on it next in September? And if there are commissioners who would like to discuss this policy further prior to the next meeting, should we set up a small group? I don't know that we want to do that, or just an informal.
We could do a conference call.
Okay.
It might be to get the dollar amount, but if it's an action item next time and there's a template that shows the different dollar amounts, if it needs changed for the commission to vote on or change that dollar amount, I could at least have it there to
Okay. All right. One more. Last comment.
I would like someone to talk to the Rosalind Commission about what they think.
Coalition.
They need.
Okay. Commissioner Garcia will be at a meeting tomorrow, and she can
Give the feedback.
All right, so moving on to 9.7. This is the student one card and educator accounts draft policy. Thank you for your patience.
Of course. At the June meeting, Vicki Turbovish and I presented our proposal for, the plans we've been working on for the 2 new initiatives that would allow us to break down some of the barriers for students and educators' use of library services. And those 2 proposals are the student one card policy and the educator policy. Our current circulation policies, which are approved and voted on by the commission, state things like a person may only have one Sonoma County Library account. We did a draft where we were revising those policies and writing in exceptions into those existing policies. And then we felt that would really not meet the need in order to actually launch this program in a timely manner. Also, we learned that other staff, in particular circulation staff, has interest to revise those policies further. So we thought that it would be a better way to approach this is to actually call it out as this entire new policy is an exception to the existing policies. And so what we presented to you today is a draft that calls out what those exceptions are, and they relate to loans and loan limits, fines and fees, what else? Something else. Requests and, no, not requests and holds, we don't work with that. Loans and loan limits, fines and fees, and one other thing. And with the intent that if we are adopting that as a separate policy, then if that policy or if this program eventually goes away for some reason or another, that we wouldn't have to go back and revise all the existing policies again. We would just have this one policy that addresses this program. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Yes, Linda.
Yeah, are we going to test this? My big concern is that there are no fines. Mm-hmm. And when there's no fines, sometimes there's no accountability. Mm-hmm. But I could say we're going to test this for a year, 2 years, mm-hmm. We're going to see what we lost, what we didn't. But just to keep it open-ended like that, because there has to be a certain amount of accountability. But you guys have researched this, you've talked to other educators, right? Mm-hmm. And this is, and I'll support it, but I would just ask that you evaluate it at a certain time.
Yes, just to respond to that is we are in the process of working on MOU documents with the school districts that will kind of be our first pilots. And that is one of the things that we're going to write into the MOU is that there would be evaluation process after 1 year. Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie.
Yeah, I'd second that, and I was concerned because Sonoma State apparently is getting rid of their fines for the students. I read an article, and then our own interim director was quoted in the same article saying that she didn't think getting rid of fines was a good idea, nor do I. So I do have concerns, and I don't know that, waiting a year, I don't know. I just feel very uncertain. I don't have the problem with the teacher so much as the student on the student card having no fines. It's like, la-di-da, why bother to turn anything back in?
Thank you. Commissioner May, you had a comment?
I just have a concern about page 112. You identify
what number?
It's 3 the regulations. You identify hoopla and discover and go, and I just hoopla may not be there forever. It's like, is there a way to be more generic in the language so that it would
That's a good comment, and we will take that into account with the draft. The intention there was that in order for this to be useful to educators who are using it in their classroom, we felt that streaming media was not guaranteed accessible.
Right.
And that was why we thought that would be a restriction. Discover and go specifically because the agreements that the venues who participate in Discover and Go have really are more restrictive and restricted to a one person or one account per person, and have other restrictions as well. So we thought that was not.
Well, if it just said something like currently Hoopla and Discover and Go,
or we could say streaming platforms, or we could say something else.
Yeah,
we can address that.
Something that allows it to, because maybe Hoopla is going to Soupla.
Sure.
Go ahead. Just quickly, so by restricted, do you mean off limits entirely or subject to some sort of controls?
That those special accounts, which are not regular library accounts, would not have access to that. Any of those people, whether it's a student or a teacher or an educator, could have a regular library account where they would have access to it.
Commissioner Foxen?
It talks about uploading student information and student data. Is there any privacy issue that's involved with that kind of upload?
Any pricing? Is that what
privacy?
Privacy. There is a big privacy issue. The library does have a confidentiality policy, and we are sharing that policy with these partner agencies, which is the school districts, and we are working with FERPA, which is the Federal Education. FERPA. It's the privacy regulations that school districts work with. The information that we are asking them to upload to us is allowed with FERPA, and we would have an opt-out option so that parents who choose would, and we've run in, with the two school districts we've been currently speaking with on this, each have different issues that are hot buttons for them. With the Rosalind School District, they're like, they were telling us that kindergarten enrollment is down because people are afraid of being on the grid with the current political climate, and so they were concerned about some of that student information. One of the things that we are going to be proposing as part of what the library offers to the MOU is that we will provide annual training on confidentiality and privacy to all staff members, not just public service staff, which is something that our training coordinator can arrange, like a training that all staff would participate in support of this program, in addition to all library services for which confidentiality and privacy really are tantamount importance. So.
I just want to go on record as, first of all, saying I think this sounds like a very great program, and I support us moving forward with it, but I also want to go on record as saying that I am actually one of those people that thinks we ought to consider doing away with library fines, and this actually could be a good opportunity for us to see the effect of doing that in this particular program. What is the downside of that? Because I know other library systems, notably recently Sonoma State, but others throughout the country have done away with library fines and have not found it to have an adverse effect. So
we are seeing that as a trend in public library systems in the North Bay as well, that they have done away with fines, whether it's just for youth or for all. And it's interesting, and we're keeping an eye on the trend. One thing I will also add is that as this is a draft policy, we are in the process of taking it around to kind of our library internal groups, branch managers, youth services, et cetera. And the branch managers at a recent meeting gave us some feedback on the policy, which we hope that we would incorporate into the next draft, or into the draft that we bring to you next month. But the feedback from the branch managers was to build not forgiveness is the wrong word.
Amnesty.
That for educators, up to 5 items per year would be what's the word? Forgiven. There we go. With the understanding that they're getting these materials for their students, and it's difficult to coordinate getting the things back. For students, we are looking at a 2-item forgiveness per year. So
great. All right. Thank you very much, Kathy. All right, so moving on to 9.8, Commission Management Consultant. Commissioner McKenzie is going to take us through this discussion.
Yes, I read the agenda and saw that I was leading a discussion on this topic, so I wrote this up because I think I expressed myself better in writing. So we're 3 years in, this new commission, and despite our very best efforts, we have no commission priorities, which means we can only kind of react to the budget instead of using our priorities to guide decision making. We don't have our completed protocols, despite incredible amount of work that our protocol committee, and especially our Commissioner Foxon, have put into this. We lack clarification of our roles and responsibilities, how and when we report to our appointing jurisdictions. We have no specific training for new commissioners. And overall, as we only meet once a month, we need improved communication. We have held 3 one-day and 1 half-day retreat/workshops. We've had different facilitators. We need consistent help to stay on track and develop our goals and processes. This is a big 11-member commission, and it's just really hard to stay on track, meeting once a month. We're in the midst of tremendous evolution and change. We have, including the director position, we have significant new expenditures, we have additional lease space, we're moving headquarters, we have the Citizens Measure Y Oversight Committee, we have the OPEB Ad Hoc Committee, we have a large increase in hiring, staffing, and more. So we're in the middle of a lot of change. Our commission has a full legal and fiduciary responsibility for this library system, as we know. The county is no longer involved. Our budget is larger than that of many cities. We meet once a month. We do a lot of work through committees. We have not clarified how the committee work is acted upon. We don't have staff attending all the committees, taking notes and so forth. We don't have a recommendation process. Finance committee recommends something. Do we implement it or not? I just haven't formulated these procedures. We are all committed volunteers, but we need some assistance, in my opinion. We have used consultants for all kinds of things in our library system. Consultants for the strategic plan process, consultants for the master plan. I have been suggesting this for many months, that we get a consultant to work with us as a commission. The finance committee recommended hiring a consultant in May. It is now August, and we've selected our leadership for the next year. I have some names and suggestions from cities and other commissions who have used consultants. My hope is that we will hire a consultant to work with us very soon, and I'm asking for a supporting consensus from the commission tonight. We have a great opportunity now to set a clear course for the future.
Comments? Commissioner May?
I have 2 questions. One of them is a question of financial, where the money would come from for this. That's the second question, really. The first question I have is the words "work with us." I'm not sure how you see that happen. Is it somebody who works with the SOP committee on an ongoing basis, and we broaden the name of that committee to all the things that you've wonderfully talked about? Do we form an executive committee? Do we form a committee of chairs? Basically, it seems to me, unless we decide we're going to give another meeting a month to work with somebody, how do you envision that the work with us would look? That's my question.
Well, in terms of the money, I believe we talked about this in the Finance Committee when we talked about it, and then we do have a line item for consultants, and this isn't a huge amount of money. I mean, this would be probably under what any of these other consultants cost, and it's under the $25,000, so technically it doesn't even have to go to the commission, but of course we want all commissioners to agree that this is a good idea. Moving forward, I'm not the management or organization consultant. I mean, to me, this would be exactly what a person would come in and go. They would probably interview each one of us, see what the issues are, come and make a presentation to us, and tell us how to move forward or suggest how to move forward. That's the issue to me. I see all of these things that just aren't in place, but you may see something totally different, and so that's where I would see, starting with that. I talked to one of these guys who, works with, I think it's Sonoma Clean Power, and it's just not at all uncommon. It's just you can't take a group of especially a big group of volunteers like this, and
get on the same page with everything that needs to be done. I mean, it's just, we haven't been able to figure out a process to do that. I don't know the answer. I'm just saying that's how, if I were a management consultant, that's what I would do. Come in and schedule an appointment with each one of us and interview us and make some suggestions, to the full commission.
Other comments, questions? Commissioner Foxen?
Well, I know my learning curve was like 18 months before I finally got what I was supposed to be doing.
Speak a little closer to your mic, please.
I said, I know my learning curve was like 18 months before I got what we were supposed to be doing. I mean, it really took me a long time to figure it all out. We started out with virtually nothing. And we're slowly, and granted, it's very slowly, we're building. And in part, it's due to people who are committed like you and like the rest of us on this committee, or on this commission. And I don't know that somebody coming in and talking to us is actually going to pull us together. I think we had a good example of working together in the last retreat we had, the 3-hour one in whatever it was, June, May, something like that. I think that was one of the first times I've seen us all actually work together. And I think we can see more of that and experience more of that if we allow ourselves. So I don't know that I would hire the consultant immediately. I would push it off down the line, certainly keep it in the back of my head, but I think I would give ourselves a little more time to learn. And I think we are learning. That's my opinion.
Anybody here? Before I talk again?
Who's next?
I still feel like, having been the chair for the first 2 years, and trying to construct towards the end of my being chair, I felt it would be good to have, at the very least, a committee of committee chairs, and perhaps the chair of the commission and the vice chair. And it seems to me that if we, I feel your frustration, and I agree with it, but it seems to me that having somebody present to us the sum up of what we all say still means that we have to act on it in some way. And so it seems to me that if we were to have a committee, committees, if we were to have a group that this person worked with, and I would hope that you would, as a chair of a committee, I mean, that list is astoundingly wonderful for what's not happening, but that person work with this group, and together the group and the person come to the commission with proposals. It just, it feels too vague for me about work with us. I don't know that would work. So I'm in favor of what you're saying. I'm just interested in the process and how we make it effective.
Well, I haven't been empowered in any sort of way whatsoever to talk to anybody to get their ideas about how they do it. I mean, you're asking me to know how they would operate, and I don't know how they would operate because they're the management consultants and they would help us. But I agree with Commissioner Fox in that I think, we tried to come together on our last half-day meeting. But you all know, those of you who've been on this commission for 3 years, that there's just a lot of just structure that is missing, and that is a very different situation that we are now in. And there's just so many things that are going on. And, here we are, and everybody's probably, tired of being here at 9:15 at night, and we're taking on this kind of, big issue, and it's just one of, many things. I can't express any more clearly that I just feel as commission, we need some help. I don't know how that person would help us, but I know that they would because they've led commissions and city councils and so forth to to decide these kinds of things, setting their priorities and so forth. And I feel like I need to cut this off right now because I can tell, you know, I just personally am enormously frustrated with the amount of structure that we are missing. And I cannot say strongly enough how I wish we would move ahead with this. If somebody else wants to carry the ball, find the consultants, interview, and make suggestions, that's fine with me. I don't care. I just want to get some help.
So my suggestion is at that half-day session that we had in June, we talked about having another half-day session in September, and I'd like to move forward with that, and that's something that we could discuss more deeply at that meeting, but we'll need more information, Barbara, and I'm not sure what you feel you need to be empowered to talk to people and find out how they do things, because each one of us can do that sort of thing. But without more information, I think it would be difficult to make a decision on this.
Well, the information that Commissioner May asked for was how would this consultant work? I do not have the power to go out and have preliminary conversations with consultants. If you want to give me that or give that to Commissioner May, you know, that's fine with me.
Well, I think that it would be better having you do that, since this is something that you are a huge proponent of, and so you know what you want to ask them more than Commissioner May would. But Reese, do you have a question?
No, why don't you consider it doing research? I mean, I spend a lot of time looking at the computer doing research. Go out and ask people, find out what they would recommend, get some ideas, do the research, then come back and present us with the information.
I have done the research, and the fact of finding out that there are consultants that do this. I feel like I'm not being clear about this. There are consultants that do this. They work with virtually all the city councils on either certain projects or on an ongoing basis, on goal setting, priority setting, strategic planning, and so forth. They work with virtually all the commissions. We are the only ones, and we use consultants within the library. We just don't use them within the governance of the library.
Can I make a suggestion that for this workshop in September, that someone identify a potential consultant, and that a part of that day includes, not the entire day, but a part of that day is a consultant, the potential consultant, coming and presenting to the commission how he or she sees that he or she would be useful to us, and how he or she has worked with other commissions or councils, and what they would suggest we do, so that we do have some expert who's giving us some frame.
I think that's a fine idea. What do you think, Barbara?
That's fine, as long as we're moving forward. Well, I'll just mention a name. Jeff Colin, who is the city manager for the city of Santa Rosa, is this kind of consultant. And I sent him an email, and he is on a trip. I don't know when he's coming back, but he is somebody who is known to most of us, or many of us, and I would be happy to ask him if he would come to a meeting in September and talk to us, if that's the will of the commission.
I think that's a great idea. Do we all have a date that we can agree to meet for 3 hours on a Saturday at the Central Forum Room in September? Probably towards the end of
Last week of September.
Huh?
The 30th for me.
You'll be here.
Yeah.
A doodle.
How about a show of hands right now?
Yeah.
For what?
I'm gone.
How about the 30th?
30th works.
30th works for me.
How about you, Randy?
Does that mean these are yes, 30th? Okay. Anybody who can't make the 30th? So if the forum room is available on the 30th, we can do our, is it?
I can see the availability
this?
I think
Fine.
the audience knows what we're talking about.
Thank you, Vicki.
Do we have to? Where after?
Where are you, my dear, this time?
Japan.
Spain. España.
Not Japan. Nepal.
This would be a 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock.
Yeah. And if he, I don't know, I'm thinking a half an hour for him to come talk and an hour for it to be discussed in total by the commission that day, and then the rest of the day would be to go over some of these other priorities that we've talked about.
Going to Pasadena.
On the 30th?
He's going to be in Japan. I go to the Japanese garden.
All right. While they're looking at that, I just want to, Randall.
Barbara, could you write up your speech about this and give it to Jane to send out to everyone?
Did you hear that, Barbara?
Can you send your talk to, okay.
I'll correct a few errors and I'll get it to Jane. Do you just want an email copy of this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we get to go back to all these items.
All right. You can cut in any time, Vicki, when you find that information out. I just want to move on to 9.9, the permanent director search. We have a committee. It's made up of myself, Tim May, Linda Garcia, Randall Neff, and Reese Foxon. So this committee will meet, and I think Suzanne Silva will be back later this week, so we can talk to her about the process. Do we have a day this week we could meet?
Oh, can we wait till next week? My daughter's wedding's on Saturday.
Okay. All right. So, Jane, would you send a doodle out to those committee members for a day next week for us to meet? Okay. Oh, and we still have some action items. Oh.
So what was the proposed date, please?
It was September 30th from 10 to 1.
It looks like there is at 2 o'clock.
So if we got out of there by 1 o'clock, would that be okay?
Juan Sanchez, is that a program?
It's a music program.
Music program at 2.
For Hispanic Heritage Month. I'll go to it after. There's a boardroom there.
So we...
Do you want me to look at the boardroom instead of the forum room? Or do you
would that work from 10 to 1? And then if we are wrapped up at 1, the tables can be just folded up and moved out of the way? And library's not open till 10.
Yes.
The boardroom is completely open that day.
But this is a public meeting, so it'd be good to have it accessible. Although we had no public come to our last one.
Right.
But
But your forum room, the central forum room is open until 2.
okay, well, we'd be out of there well before 2.
And staff is usually there by 9 a.m.
Could we
on
start at
Saturdays.
9?
You want to start at 9?
Yeah. Let's
Somebody's shaking her head.
It's a public meeting, though, once again.
Yeah, so let's just do it
Someone would have
10.
to wait at the front door.
We can get there a little before 10, but...
We shouldn't start at 9.
Right.
Well, what should we do?
We'll have to be efficient about getting...
Okay, so let's schedule it from 10 to 1.
10 to 1.
Would you like me to schedule that?
Would you
as long as I'm
please?
there?
Yes, please. Thank you, Vicki.
Thank you, Vicki.
All right, so now we still have item 8.1, 8.4, 8.5, and 8.6 to move down to this point. So 8.1, there were some errors in the minutes. Let's boogie through this. I have one correction, and that's the name of the fellow who spoke. This is on page 1, line 30. It says Joel Burke, and I found out his name is Newberg, Neuberg.
The heading up at the top says Library Commission Agenda, and I believe it should read minutes on the very first line up at the top. Line 1, Library Commission Agenda. And it's the minutes.
Is that it? Oh, this is very minor. Page 3, line 123, it should say LOS and the LOS, CN, LOS. It's very minor. Sorry that we are such nitpickers. All right, so then we have so we need to approve it.
I'll move approval subject to those corrections.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Abstain. Paul Heavenridge and Tim May abstain.
You missed it even too.
Who else wasn't here?
Okay, gotcha.
Who moved to approve? Commissioner Hauser?
Commissioner Hauser, you were absent.
I was going to say you were absent. You can't do that.
Okay, so let's do that again. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve the minutes with corrections.
Okay, so we have Commissioner McKenzie and Commissioner Garcia. We have 3 abstentions, Hauser, May, and Heavenridge, and everybody else is aye. All right, so 8.4, approve commission meeting schedule for 2018. Commissioner McKenzie, I had something about this, but you got in there first.
I asked that it be polled. We're just beginning to talk about having the budget process be earlier in the year, and I just think that kind of March, April, those 2 dates I don't feel firm about them.
Right, I agree. I think that we'd like to have the initial budget workshop. We talked about this at the last budget workshop, that we'd like to have the initial one either in February or March, and then a follow-up can happen in April once, subject to any changes in the initial discussion. So can we make that change? Which would be better, February or March for the initial?
Let's check with staff about them creating a budget. Is it better? Could you have a proposed budget available by February, or is March better? Look at that.
I do recall, Ken, that you talked about how you do work on the budgets earlier than we had seen it.
Right. I work on the budget quite a bit.
I know that.
But as far as having something that's presentable, I would always advocate for the later date. But that's me. The thing you run into is, as soon as you put something down in writing, it changes right away. I mean, we're even going through that with the different positions, but we can get a budget together, and I think the earlier time that you were looking for was more about getting input into the budget, not necessarily having all the numbers add up. Am I correct?
Well, I think you are correct. I think that I think it's important, though, for the commission to, know what the staff's priorities are, so that we can have some input and some base to work from.
Could I comment? So again, hopefully we will have commission priorities, which will help direct the budget process. So that's number one. And secondly, just because like tonight is a long meeting, when we had that last budget thing, we had the presentation from the staff, which was new, which was very helpful, and then went right into a full meeting, and it was too much. I would suggest that we have a budget workshop as a separate meeting, and then have our commission meeting also in a given month. Those are two separate things.
So starting earlier, like 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, or something like that?
But on 2 different, have a budget workshop. That's a half a day. We want to hear from all the staff, we hear from the departments, all that kind of jazz, and then have a separate commission meeting on another day. That's my suggestion.
So we used to do something like that.
I was going to say, as a little historic precedent, we used to do something like that, but one of the compensations that we did is we used to not have a January meeting. That we would, until you got on the commission and then said you wanted to have that January meeting.
I just said,
Yeah, I know, I'm just telling.
the
I'm just a
JPA
figure.
says monthly meeting.
Right. Anyway, so that's one of the ways we used to do it, is we would have 2 meetings in 1 month and not have a meeting another month.
What month, though?
We didn't meet in January because of all the holidays, etc., and the problems with getting the 2 meetings. The 2 meetings were in April, I believe. February?
No, they were in February, yeah.
They were in February. And but that we didn't meet in January, partly because there's the Christmas, New Year's break in the middle, and in getting the packet out really fast, and all that stuff was how we did it.
But then we started having it at the end of January to make up for
Right.
Right.
But then they had to get, anyway.
Well, why don't we have January board meeting later and February board meeting later and have it be this special thing? And so we do have a January, skip February because it's such a short month.
And
No.
The February meeting would be the budget
The
meeting, and then we'd have a regular meeting in March.
regular meeting in March, and then April we'd come back to the budget or something.
So would the February meeting be the one where we would want staff to make their presentations about what they've been doing for the year and where they want to go?
After.
When's finance?
And so we wouldn't have a regular commission meeting then in February. It would only be a budget meeting.
We do January late, so it's not a long, long period of time between the January and March meeting. And then the February is kind of in there somewhere, and it's just budget.
I personally don't have any problem with that as long as everybody can get it on their schedules. I mean, everybody's used to the first Monday of the month, so.
So, can we let this go for a discussion between the chair and the director to come next time with a proposal that has that framework?
I think we can put it off a month to approve something. All right. All right, so moving on to 8.5, and I think I was the one who had a question on this, and I think my only, actually it's more of a comment, I guess, because when you get to the unrepresented, non-represented, and management salaries, there is a there's like step increases for the director's position, and I understand that with the interim director that would be appropriate because we don't have a contract with her, but the permanent director will have a contract with, and under the previous contract we don't have regular salary increases. And I just wanted us to make sure that this will not lock us into doing regular salary increases, because with contracts, you need to approve each salary increase and make a decision on the salary increase. So it doesn't seem appropriate to have step increases for a person that we're contracting with for services. And I see my HR commissioner, the one with all the HR knowledge, who is nodding her head, is agreeing with that. Right. So how do we handle this? Do you have suggestions on how we would handle this particular situation? Because with our interim director, she's not on contract.
I would just note it as contract position and get rid of all the steps and just have the her current salary listed, but remove all the other steps but list it.
But my recollection from what our HR director, Suzanne Silva, said is that for this particular situation with an interim director, you would need, it's something with PERS. Did you recall what she said, Tracy? Oh.
I think the issue with PERS is that we have to have a salary schedule with the person's salary on it that's published and agreed upon by the commission, so PERS can see that. I think what Commissioner Duran was saying is, and I think that's what we did before, is with the director, we just put their current salary on that, agreed to it, and sent that to PERS, and that took care of that. With the, I mean, in this case, with the interim director, I think we could, you all could approve this salary schedule, which would take care of that, and then when the permanent director is hired, it would be changed to only have the current salary on it.
Thank you. Thank you. That's what I was thinking, but I appreciate having your validation for that. But okay, so I just wanted to point that out to the rest of the commission so that in the event that I'm not here when we hire the regular director.
Where are you going to be?
Well, I mean, if I miss the meeting or something. So, okay, so then
I want to approve this.
Do I have a motion?
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so.
I'm second.
And who made the motion?
Okay, it's not significant.
Ask my wife, I'm always second.
All right, so one more here. We have item 8.6, approved nationwide contract 457.
Yes, I asked this to be pulled. Just a quick question. I think this is for the administration of our deferred comp plan, so it makes sense. I noticed that their charges are 0.04% or 4 basis points, and I just wondered if that's a typical charge.
Yes, as far as I know, it is. That's what the county has also.
I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Yes, this was, I mean, typical. I can't say that I've compared a whole bunch of these contracts to say whether it's typical or not. But this was also what the county has in their contract for the 457 plan.
Great. So then that maybe answers this other question I had, which is I was wondering why the plan sponsor was the library county treasurer - tax collector at our address.
Yeah, we got to get that changed when we go to sign it. It should be us. We're the plan sponsor.
Okay, so that'll be changed then?
Right.
Okay.
The old one was hooked into the county because it took place about 10 or 12 years ago. So.
Great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, do I have a motion to approve 8.6?
I move.
All right, Paul Heavenridge, and seconded by Commissioner Hauser. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. All right. All right, so that takes us to Item 12, lab appointments. And the commissioner from Roanoke Park, would you like to read this motion?
Yes, I would like to move that we appoint Art Stuckey, or Arthur Stuckey is his full name, to a position on the Roanoke Park Katati Library Advisory Board for a term ending on June 30th, 2021. And I would footnote that with an appreciation for Art for the hours he's already put in before he even came on the lab, and the volunteerism that he's already performed. And we know that he's going to be a very valuable member of our lab, and we welcome him on board.
Second.
And Paul Heavenridge with a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Okay, so now we come to item 13, items to include in commission notes. And
Moving headquarters to Roanoke Park.
say what?
Moving headquarters to Roanoke Park.
Successful summer reading project program.
I think we're all tired. I think we're all a little tired. So if you think of something that comes to you later, please let Jane know. Reese? Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and the refresh, what they reported on, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And how about just something on the lawyers in the library? I just think that's such a unique and interesting program.
On what program?
The lawyers in the library.
Lawyers in the library?
Part of our public service report on page 58.
All right. All right, so thank you all very much. We've talked about some agenda items for future commission meetings, and I hope that Jane was noting those. We talked about in September, we're going to look at the commission meetings again. In October, we're going to have a discussion about the policy of Friends donations, as well as book collection purchases. And our next regular meeting will be Monday, September 11th at 6:30 here in these chambers, and I adjourn this meeting.